might fight. My guys are high risers, high tide. Might drown if you come to my side. I pledge allegiance for lifetime. My squad connected like Wi-Fi. We grind and you see the highlights. This my life. It ain't a game now. Me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way. You wasn't invited. Say you come to play. I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me. Then step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Game now, me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way, you wasn't invited. Say you come to play, I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me, then step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way, yeah, yeah. Out of the way, yeah, yeah. Out of the way.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Countdown to Green, refreshed by Coca-Cola. Thanks so much for spending your Tuesday nights with us. My name's Amy Long. I'm being joined by Brandon Cattell, Chris Overland, and guest panelist eNASCAR broadcaster Blake McCandless. How you doing tonight, gentlemen?
Blake's back for the playoffs.
I know, right? We finally made it back.
We got rid of Michael. No, Michael's feeling under the weather. I know he's watching. Feel better. Get well soon, Michael. Me and Brandon and Blake all went to Daytona. We got some sun. We started the playoffs in NASCAR, and now we're going to start them tonight in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series.
Yeah, we are. We'll recap that just a little bit, but there are only 4 races left to go, fans. Tonight, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is headed to the virtual Darlington Raceway in South Carolina for round 15. The playoffs are here, my friends. The road to the crowning the 21 champion is narrowing. But first, Matt Busa won the regular season finale in a walk-off win at the virtual Michigan International Speedway, earning himself and Mode Media House a spot in the playoffs. Take a look.
Pace car going to go off and in as always. Happy that you're spending your Tuesday night with us. The field in the hands of Logan Clampett as we say, let's go racing from Michigan. It's Alfala, the 51 spins down to the inside, and that may do it for Ray Alfala's championship hopes.
It seems like there's still 2 or 3 wide.
No.
Oh, there it is.
Well,
the
third car's around.
It was Alan Bose who got tagged. 2 on a spinner. There he goes. It's the 29 car around with 7 laps to go at Michigan. Jake Nichols is in control. Now what can Conti do working the bottom? Look at Kerwin to the inside. What a slice as he goes 3 wide to second. 1 more lap to go from Michigan. Matheson again gets blocked to the inside. Looking low. Oh, he takes out Leahy. Leahy gets turned. Matheson finished him. Here comes Busa to the inside. He moves Matheson. Matt Busa to the lead in turn 4. Kerwin to second. 4 wide behind. But Matt Busa wins at Michigan. What an incredible walk-off win for Matt Busa.
Number 75 of Matt Busa went from 5th to 1st in the final lap. Incredible stuff. The chaos of the regular season is over. Here are the 10 drivers that made the cut. Blake, your takeaways.
Well, the one thing I'm looking at, Amy, when you take a look, obviously 10 very deserving drivers, Chris. I think we can agree on that. But also, when you look at this standings, remember, Mitchell DeYoung has 2 wins. Everybody else only had 1 win. So guess what? Everyone is virtually tied except for Mitchell DeYoung, who has those 3 extra playoff points. So, Chris, we're basically starting dead even. And remember, this isn't like real life. We're not eliminating 4 of 16 or 12. Over half this field will not make it to the championship for Texas.
Yeah, you know, and the one thing I really want to point out is how important momentum is. And let's talk about Matt Busa. He's got 2 wins in the series, and both of them were when he absolutely had to do it. So momentum on somebody's side like Matt Busa right before playoffs, winning when you have to, man, I don't know. Talk about some all-time historic playoff moments. That was one from Matt Busa for sure. And who knows? He may be able to squeak 1 or 2 more wins out. He knows he can win when he has to. So I'm looking at Matt Busa for sure.
All right, I like it. All right, the team standings headed into round 15 in front of you now. Chris, your takeaways.
Well, Richmond Raceway Esports, they got it done. Last week they had 2 solid finishes and they moved up in the points. 23-11, still dominating these team points. Ironically enough, though, neither of their drivers in the playoffs, so there's still something to fight for those guys.
All right, Brandon, your thoughts?
Well, Chris, that was really good points there, but I really want to shine the light on Mode Motorsports here. Matt Busa with their win at Michigan, and Jake Nichols with how well he's been running with his run at New Hampshire and Michigan, both top 5 finishes for that team. They're really showing some strong energy here at the end of the season. Maybe to make a run at that extra cash that everybody really wants in the team standings. I know Mitchell DeYoung and Keegan Leahy still have it right now.
Yeah. Now I know why I left this show, Chris.
Yeah, but they're making a little charge here at the end of the season. They really want the money, guys.
Yeah, that money is talking. And that last race of the regular season, Michigan, how about that? Chris, your thoughts while you were watching that? You guys, all three of you packed up, headed south to Daytona International Speedway this past weekend for the Coke Zero Sugar 400, where you were also able to show off some of your skills around the track. Allied Esports and NASCAR teamed up to bring gaming activations to the fans by way of an 80-foot mobile gaming arena, which included a main stage, broadcaster booth, roof deck, full production capabilities, as well as iRacing simulators. But before the guys took off on the road, a very special fan had a very pointed question for our very own Chris Overland. Take a look.
Oh no.
How many wins do you have?
How many wins do you have, Chris?
I just, I had to do that to you, Chris. I'm really sorry. When Drew said we were putting that in the show, that was the best thing ever. Shout out to my daughter, Everly, just really stating the facts there.
I played soccer or basketball or whatever sport it was with her for like an hour. And I don't know if I'll be doing that anymore. It's the disrespect, Brandon. I'm disappointed in you, Everly.
Gotta love kids.
I think it's amazing. But also, let's recap you guys' trip. You had a great time, and we have got some video from it, so let's check it out now, if we can. And even, Brandon, I heard you have some bragging rights to talk about, too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm going to get disappointed again on TV.
We had so much fun here at the eNASCAR hauler. Some of the eNASCAR competitors like Garrett Maines, Casey Kerwin were there to help fans really kind of show them how to get around the track and get them up and running on the simulator. There's Chris Overland right there. He's getting interviewed right there too.
That was
Chris, you didn't win a race. I don't know why you're getting interviewed.
Stop.
But we even had some bragging rights of our own as we kind of had some lap times being put there on the board. Chris had the fastest lap time for a while until I knocked him off at the end of the day, which was really great. There's Casey Kerwin right there with his long hair. He looks like Justin Bieber.
Yeah, ironically enough, with Ray Alfala, those guys, there's no love lost between them. They've had some run-ins in the series.
Yeah.
See Casey Tucker, Brian Blackford there.
Yeah, we even had MRN. MRN was interviewing Ray, which was really cool that they did that. They even interviewed Casey Kerwin and Garrett Maines down there, so that was awesome. Here's Garrett Maines taking pictures with some fans right here.
I think it was absolutely astonishing how many people knew who Ray was at that eNASCAR event.
I know this guy.
Yeah.
No, I'm taking a sip of definitely orange juice. I promise. And there's
Coca-Cola.
Ray with Kyle Busch.
Yeah, Ray got to see his team owner there, Kyle Busch.
Amazing. And Blake, I saw that you were working with Parker Klickerman on pit road. I saw that photo real quick. How was the view from where you were standing?
Oh yeah, very fortunate. That was a really neat experience to be able to take everything in down on pit road and see how all those guys do their jobs over at NBC. So that was awesome. Thanks to all the folks at NBC and Parker himself who made that happen. So that was a lot of fun to be a part of.
It's very impressive. I'm proud.
Yes.
We're proud of you, Blake.
I'm flattered.
Come a long way, Blake.
It was a lot of fun to watch that race. Even more fun, though, that we're having here with this series. We're starting the playoffs, so everybody get excited about that. I know I'm pumped. I know another person who's really excited joining us on Countdown to Green. NASCAR Series Cup champion, IndyCar Series champion, USAC champion, Hall of Famer, team owner, track owner, series owner, motorsports lifer, he says on Twitter. Guys, the resume goes on 10 pages. Joining us is Tony Stewart. Thanks so much for being here at Countdown to Green. You've been on sim racing for years, and have you noticed any benefits to sim racing?
Well, it's been definitely for the better, for sure. I mean, it's you look at some of the guys that really don't have a lot of practical racing knowledge and experience as far as being on track, but you look at guys that have come up through iRacing now, and now they're having opportunities and getting opportunities to test real cars. And that's something that I think has been huge. It's really shown a lot of people that, you don't have to have deep pockets to get involved in racing. And, the people that understand the practical side of it and the sims just keep getting better and better. And iRacing is head and shoulders above anybody else that's been in the industry. And
we don't have any more road courses left, guys. We have Texas, Bristol, Talladega, and Darlington tonight, obviously. and the names, when I thought of these tracks that came up with Jimmy Mullis at Darlington, I just know how good Jimmy is with tracks with the low downforce package, and I know how good Vicente is on short tracks. That's why I think he's going to win Bristol. And then obviously Talladega, you just can't go wrong with the 8 car at Talladega. Michael Conti won Daytona this year, and the man, the myth, the legend, Keegan Leahy. He's just so consistent. How can you not have him pointing in? And then after all is said and done, I think Michael Conti is going to be the champion. The man, he's done it before. There's no reason why he can't do it again.
All right, I like it. I think these are all really good. All right, let's have a look at mine, fellas.
Whoa, you're making picks. All
Oh
right.
yeah, I'm making
Let's
picks
go.
here. I've got Bolin, Mullis, Bryant, and Zelensky, with Bolin taking it all. So he may have busted a three race like top 5 streak last week, but let's not talk about the past. I think he's got great momentum this entire season. Mullis has proven time and time again he can perform under pressure, and guess what, guys? It matters now. He's my guy that's going to be winning. In Talladega, he narrowly grabbed the final spot in the top 10, but Bob Bryant, he's gaining confidence, momentum. I like it. And Graham Bolin, he's going to be taking it all the way home for me, I think. So we'll see. What do you guys want to go ahead and bet a case of Coca-Cola on this?
I don't know quite about that, but I do want to point out that when Cattell got his first win, he finished second, not only to Bob Bryant.
That is true.
I love it.
How about Jimmy Mullis in every single Final Four? And you know what? If we're going to take that bet of Coca-Cola, Amy, I think you and Michael are seeing eye to eye on that. So they'll have to double it up.
I think so too. Let's see who else is seeing eye to eye. Fans, let's see your brackets. Who's making it to the championship race at Texas? Who's going to win it all? Share your brackets and tag us using the hashtag #CokePlayoffs. We want to see those. And fans, you always deliver when we ask here on Countdown to Green. Another one of my favorite segments, as I mentioned before, Twitter rigs. We love all the drivers out there showing off their sim rigs at home. This segment is brought to you by Logitech. Here's a look at more rigs for the archive.
Let's go. This is my favorite part
Let's
of the
look
show.
at them.
Whoa.
Oh, man.
Diecast. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name.
I love the commitment here. Check out all the die casts. I mean, it's amazing.
I'm not even looking at the rig. That's what I'm looking at. I mean, we got a lot of stuff up there.
I know.
Behind the rig, is that a sauna?
Oh, wow.
Oh, the room's purple. And there's
look at
Denny
this
Hamlin
one.
right there.
That is, I really love this. Is just really simple and clean and an awesome setup.
Look
Yeah,
at
we
the
know
telemetry
that
up top,
sim rig
too.
right there.
It almost looks like it's floating. It's great.
Oh man,
the
here we
roll
go.
cage.
Raymond with the cockpit around everything. And he's sitting in it. We don't get many pictures where the driver's actually sitting in it. So nicely done there.
That's
I
true.
feel
If
like
you guys
this
submit your
means-
rigs, send them in with you guys in them. I think that'd be cool. Wear some cool Coca-Cola attire.
Oh yeah, I love it. Purple's popular tonight.
Oh, wow.
I'm loving the
Brewer
3 screens.
Motorsports. The triple
accident.
monitors are the way to go, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a fan of the widescreen, to be honest.
Is that a triple? I can't see that. Maybe like Dale Jr. background or something like that. Oh, here we
Whoa.
go.
Okay.
Is
This looks like a lawn chair.
Is there hydraulics built in here? I feel like
This
I don't
is in
know
front of the
what's going on.
television too. That's not even a computer. That's
Hey,
a television screen right
as
there.
long as it gets the job done, he's winning races.
I'll bet he
True.
does. That's great
Ow.
too.
Man, when this guy has
B27,
people
man.
over, do they just look over the sim
Check
rig
out
onto
the
the TV?
sound system.
Oh yeah, golly, that must be
He's a
loud.
49ers fan. Never mind. Crizzle.
Blue screen.
Well, it's gone.
Oh, wow.
What
This
is
guy
this?
is
It's a
using
cat
his
man.
cat tower. That is
Oh man,
Zach.
that is one of the craziest things I've seen to sim racing.
I
Why
love
is there a onesie hanging from the curtains?
and I mean you get the whole
Amazing.
spectrum, right? You get the MPI wheels like you see right here. We go back to what looked like something that was clamped to a bunch of furniture.
cat
Yeah, that's what I love
mansion.
about sim racing.
Notice the fan on the floor here. That's amazing.
They got, is that spa up there at the top? I don't know my racetrack shapes. I'm sorry. They're not circles. Why? How do you?
I think
How
this
do you sim
man,
race?
Not center.
he works and plays. This man knows what's going on. This is like a hybrid setup here.
I think he just contorts his body while he drives. That's insane.
You think? No, I think that's a great setup.
That was fun.
Clearly, they switched chairs here, I would think.
The
right?
more crazy these sim rigs get, the more excited I get for this segment. This Cat Mansion. You got to beat Cat Mansion now. So you got something better than that.
Well, and there's a reason we never run out of them either. That's why we can keep doing this show after show. We just
Logitech is going to release a Cat Mansion desk now.
Yeah, we want to see we want to see more, guys. Tweet them in. They're great.
Yeah, share yours too. Tweet us a picture using the hashtag eNASCAR and tag iRacing and NASCAR. All right, tonight, round 15 of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series takes on the virtual Darlington Raceway. We turn to Blake McCandless for track analysis and an onboard look of the raceway.
Well, Michael, I hope I do you justice here as we take a look over the Lady in Black, the track Too Tough to Tame, whatever you want to call it. It's unique. Egg-shaped layout is something that is totally an hour before the show asking him what makes Darlington so tricky, what makes it so unique. When you look at this racetrack, he said the line sensitivity and precision. There is no oval on the NASCAR circuit, which are all perfectly laser scanned into iRacing, that require the precision of you to run your lines correctly to be able to get around this very challenging racetrack. As you look at both ends of this racetrack, draft there in 3 and 4, the bottom and the top going to come into play at that end of the racetrack. You can carry that momentum on the top side. You can duck to the bottom in clean air as we head toward 1 and 2. This is your passing opportunity. Very difficult to go through this entire corner side by side, and then you'll move right up to the wall through the center of turn 2. Almost get a little bit of a Darlington stripe there on exit, but the one thing that these drivers have to deal with that is a factor in every Southern 500, the sun on the back straightaway as you drive towards those Earnhardt Towers. It is blinding, and it is something that, because we have dynamic weather in iRacing, is perfectly replicated. So particularly at the beginning of the race, you are going to be blinded heading down the back stretch. I can't imagine side drafting, missing the wall, not getting a Darlington stripe, doing all those things, and having to run a perfect lane at a track that has very little grip. Very difficult, and we'll see who's up for it.
Going to be a fun one.
You know, one of the biggest things that when I was in this series, and I want to talk about it really quickly, is that when I went to Darlington, I did not show up expecting to go out there and run a hot lap every lap. I thought I could get a top 10 if I just kept it out of the wall. So mentioning the Darlington stripe, it's a big thing.
It is.
And Brandon hit the wall a lot.
You ran top 10? I didn't
Of course.
even know you ran top 10.
Well, I don't doubt there's going to be a ton of action on the track tonight. We'll even have to count how many of them get that stripe you're talking about. But before the action on the track, let's hear who our panel of drivers thinks going to bring home the checkers. The driver picks brought to you by Playseat, the official racing chair of eNASCAR. Brandon, let's start with you. Who do you think is going to end up in victory lane?
Well, I've been leading this thing for a couple races now, so I guess I know what I'm talking about, finally, late in the season.
Get on
but
with
it. I think tonight, the guy who just excels on slick racetracks, Jimmy Mullis, is going to get the job done. He's going to take the victory tonight and win at Darlington. The guy is going to go for a championship. I just think it.
You know,
undoubtedly.
That's not a bad pick, Brandon, and I know you're talking about being in the points lead, but I gained some points on you. I'm only 4 points back, and also I think since Blake's here for Michael that he should get half points. But that's besides the point. My pick tonight is somebody who's got nothing to lose and everything to gain and everything to prove. Past series champion Nick Ottinger gets the job done tonight at Darlington. The pressure is off, all right? His season's basically over. Right now, all he's got to do is win, prove to everybody that he still got it, a la Tony Stewart, who was on the show earlier when he missed the playoffs back in 2006, I believe it was. He went out and he won everything. So I expect the same from Nick Ottinger this season. I think it starts tonight.
Ottinger may be strong. I know he and his William Byron Esports teammates hearing that they're going to be pretty fast tonight. So Ottinger, very solid pick right there. But I will go and show what Michael was. That is Michael Conti. We all had him making our championship 4, right? No better opportunity for him to get that done than to go out and win this race. Experienced veteran who's been around this series for a long time. Cool, calm, collected. Really good at these racetracks that have this high horsepower, low downforce package. I'm picking Michael Conti, or at least Michael's picking Michael Conti to go to victory lane tonight.
You know,
that's a good pick, Michael.
I noticed none of us had Matt Busa in our Final Four. I wonder if he's going to surprise us tonight.
He might.
Yeah,
Motivation, Matt. Go get it done.
He might be watching this right now and knows he needs to get it done. All right. Calling tonight's race from the booth, Steve Letarte, Evan Pasoko. Looking forward to checking in with them a little bit on. Remember, tweet us a picture of your rigs and brackets. We want to show them off during the next show. Use the hashtag eNASCAR and tag iRacing and NASCAR. For everyone behind the camera that brings this show to life, and my panel of drivers, Blake McKinless. Thanks for joining us tonight, Blake. Chris
Absolutely,
Overland.
glad to be back.
Michael Guerrilla, thanks for joining us on Countdown to Green. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series postseason starts now. Buck tossing it over now to Steve Letarte and Evan Pasoko.
Playoffs.
We've learned to savor the moments that were always there. And they never tasted this good.
I am sweet. The taste, the smell. It's winning, and there's nothing quite like it. And now, a win is even sweeter, because a win means you move on. That much closer to playoffs glory. I am what we do this for. To be remembered forever as champion. I am the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series playoffs. I am NASCAR.
It doesn't matter where you're from, who you grew up rooting for, what you grew up watching, your home track, your favorite car, the series you've always wanted to race in. When you're ready to know what it's like, we're here, bringing you as close to the action as it gets with the ultimate sim racing experience. With a community of hundreds of thousands just like you. This is iRacing, and here, every day is race day.
I'm on the mission, snap any minute, casually when it stop tripping on me, stop dissing on me. Yeah, I got a dream, can't take it from me, gotta get it here, I don't wanna wait, take what I want, then I go train, gotta get a win, I won't lose the game, this is my year, I ain't gonna break. Ain't got no time for the year, I work too hard to get here, ain't got no time for the fear. I work too hard to get here.
The road to $300,000 is ready for a date with the Lady in Black. Where tonight, from the virtual Darlington Raceway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Round 1, Race 1 of the 2021 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series playoffs. And as always, happy that you're spending a Tuesday night with us on the iRacing Esports Network and streaming live at eNASCAR.com. Steve Letarte along with myself, Evan Pasoko. And Steve, we saw what this playoff format could bring last time out at Michigan. A last-second win for Matt Busa that flipped the playoff grid on its head. Tonight, though, we press the reset button, and 10 drivers will race with a chance of advancing to the Championship 4 here this evening.
Yeah, 10 drivers with a chance to advance, a chance to race for a championship, but they're going to do it at the most difficult track in NASCAR, in my opinion, in perhaps the longest e-race of the entire series. 183 laps around Darlington is no small chore. It's going to be very difficult to decide when you put tires on, how your pit strategy falls, not to mention just keeping your car clean. This is a track that very easily can reach out and bite you.
And of course, if they can tame it tonight, a race win would lock them into that Championship 4. But we will, over the course of these next 3 weeks, whittle this field of 10 cars down to those Championship 4 hopefuls as we race for a title a little bit later this year at Texas. It's a long race. There's a lot on the line. And we are ready to see how this one gets underway. So let's go trackside and hand things off to Kerry Tharp, the president of Darlington Raceway, for the most famous words in motorsports.
Darlington Raceway would like to welcome the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series here to the track too tough to tame. Drivers, start your engine!
Well, thank you, Carrie, for getting us ready to rock and roll tonight from virtual Darlington Raceway. Before we go trackside, let's hand things over to Keenan Kusid and introduce you to the 2021 playoff class.
Thank you, Evan, and welcome everyone to the 2021 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series playoffs. After 14 races, 1,634 laps, 2,681 miles, it has all come down to this. 40 drivers have been narrowed down to 10, all vying for the chance at prestige, glory, and a cool $100,000. The road to the biggest prize in oval sim racing starts now. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series playoff contenders. Representing Space Station Gaming from Temecula, California, winning earlier this year in Richmond, he pilots the number 55 Ford Mustang, eNASCAR rookie Vicente Salas. Driving out of Biloxi, Mississippi, taking the number 77 Chevrolet to victory lane at Auto Club Speedway and trying to take it to a championship, it's Clickerman Esports' own Bob Bryant. Richmond Raceway Esports' own, driving the number 46 Toyota out of Midland, North Carolina, with a win at New Hampshire and a pole and going for a championship. Say hello to Jimmy Mullis. Driving the number 75 Ford Mustang for Mode Motorsports and representing Darien, Illinois, with the buzzer beater racing his way into the last race at Michigan, trying to channel that momentum, it's Matt Busa. For William Byron Esports, hailing from Concord, North Carolina, conquering the fast and fierce Atlanta Motor Speedway in the number 97 Chevrolet, it's the leader of Clamp Nation, Logan Clampett. Driving the number 32 2311 Toyota Camry from the shores of Halifax, Nova Scotia, taking his win at Homestead with the most laps led of any driver this season, it's the weatherman, Keegan Leahy. From the heart of NASCAR country, Concord, North Carolina, and a former champion to boot, racing his way in through the season opener at Daytona, it's the driver of the number 8 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet, Michael Conti. Mastering the tricky triangle earlier this year at Pocono and having 7 top 10s to his name, driving out of Fresno, California in the Letarte Esports number 83 Chevrolet, it's Bobby Zelensky. Taming the S's of Watkins Glen with 5 top 5 finishes in the regular season. From the Lone Star State, Houston, Texas, with the number 10 Stewart Haas Racing Ford, it is Graham Bolin. Taking the checker flag at 2 of the 3 road courses this season, driving out of Temecula, California in the number 23 2311 Toyota Camry, it is Mitchell DeYoung. Ladies and gentlemen, there are only 4 races left to go. Anything can still happen. Who's going to win it all and cash their check for $100,000? Well, we'll have to find out as the 2021 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series playoffs begin at the track too tough to tame, Darlington Raceway.
Well, let's go trackside and take a look at your Coca-Cola starting grid, and it is a playoff duo of Mitchell DeYoung and Keegan Leahy on the front row for this one. Atop, Nick Ottinger and Graham Bolin, playoff driver in 4th. On row number 3, playoff hopeful Michael Conti will roll from the number 6 position, ahead of a couple of non-playoff competitors in Ryan Luza and Casey Kerwin. Zach Novak is on the inside of row 5 into P9, and Vicente Salas rounds out your top 10.
Falling a little bit farther back, you're going to see Logan Clampett and Jimmy Mullis will make up row 6. This start's going to be very interesting. Ashton Crowder, Bobby Zelensky, playoff hopeful back in row 7. That's deep in the field. A lot of action early. Corey Vincent, Ray Alfalo. Ray with a win, but didn't get into the playoffs with that win. Jake Nichols, Taylor Hurst in row 9. Making up row 10 in the top 20, we see the 16 car and the 17.
They're just ahead of the likes of Dylan Duvall and Nathan Lyon, Anthony Burrows and Jacob Matheson on row number 12. Alan DeBose is 25th, and then playoff driver Matt Busa way back in P26 ahead of Garrett Lowe, Brad Davies, Ryan Doucette, and Femi Olat, your top 30.
The last 5 rows made up of Kane Cook with the 9 car outside of him, row 16. In row 17, we see the 14 of Clint Boyer Esports next to Garrett Maines in the 2. Blake Reynolds and Zach Nichols make up row 18. Bob Bryant in row 19 next to the 37 from JTG Doherty. And then the 20th row, we have the 47 and the 11.
And that's a look top to bottom at your Coca-Cola starting grid. Mitchell DeYoung has qualified on pole position for a series best 5th time here in 2021. He's got the best seat on the grid to open these 2021 playoffs, but I know that he's going to feel the challenge from his 2311 Racing teammate of Keegan Leahy on the outside of the front row. Which of those Toyotas can find supremacy early in this race, and will a good start to this race be critical enough to maybe survive what could be a rough and tough 250 miler here from Darlington? But Steve, will pass things back off to you. You're dialed up with the driver of the number 23 Toyota, Mitchell DeYoung.
Mitchell, Steve Letard up here in the booth, man. First of all, congratulations on another pole position, 5th of the year, but the first of the playoffs. Tell me the approach now that the playoffs are here.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, super stoked with that lap. It's been a while since I've gotten the pole, so super stoked with this one. But, you know, that was the kind of big thing coming into here. You want to have that track position, so hopefully we can just stay here, run our own race. We have Keegan behind us as well, which is super helpful. So, you know, hopefully we just hold this track position and we can get that win.
Well, you mentioned run your own race. This is a very long race at a very tough racetrack. What's going to be the biggest challenge this evening?
I think keeping it off the walls, that's going to be key. I think the next big thing in line is making sure you don't mess up your pit entry. That's so tough here. So I think those are the key things that we need to watch out for.
Mitchell, I think you're a wise driver to talk about the pit entry here at Darlington. I've seen NASCAR's best miss it, so it's very difficult. Good luck tonight.
Thank you, sir.
That is your pole sitter who's going to start for the very front of the field. And Steve, I know you mentioned this is a long one, only topped by our 300-mile race earlier in the year at Charlotte. Tell us more about it as we look at a RaceSuits race analysis.
I can assure you, though, from experience, 300 at Charlotte is nothing like 250 at Darlington. 183 laps at the track, too tough to tame. Pit road speed, 45 miles per hour. It takes about 22 seconds plus a pit stop to come down pit road. 6 sets of tires, very important on a long race. Fuel window, you know, right around 60 laps, and I think it's worth noting, 45 miles per hour, a very difficult entry. Mitchell made a great point about pit road, so it's going to be very careful. We'll have to see who does it.
You can see weather conditions as well, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp down at 85, but what I'm more looking for is watching to the sky over the course of this race. We will race into the evening. Let's bring in the third member of tonight's broadcast team down to pit road with Tim Terry. Tim, how's it going?
It's going so far so good, and Steve hit the nail on the head. I think that fuel window going to be about 60 laps. All these teams are being told right now to save fuel. It could be a long run to start off this race, so keep that in mind as we go forward. Everybody's all jacked up and ready to go. This is going to be an exciting race, boys.
It is going to be an exciting one, and we'll be checking in with you over the course of this race just to see what the strategy is, and of course, depending on how crazy this one gets, may impact some of the strategy and how these drivers want to race to the end. Steve, you mentioned that 250 miles at Darlington harder than 300 miles at a place like Charlotte. I look back on what Michael Conti tweeted yesterday. Low grip, high stakes. This is such a challenging arena to throw these drivers into in a pressure-packed playoff opener.
Challenging arena and 2 hot spots. I look at the exit of turn 2. The entrance of 1, reasonably calm, carry good speed across the middle of 1 and 2. The exit of 2 narrows up very quickly. And then right here where the cars are rolling, the entrance to turn 3. I think perhaps the easiest corner to overdrive in all of NASCAR. It invites you to carry a ton of speed down into the corner. And you don't realize you're going too fast until it's much too late.
We're happy that you're with us on a Tuesday night. The pace car down and in. It is Mitchell DeYoung's field to control as we say, let's go racing at Darlington. Both of the 2311 Toyotas rocket down to turn number 1 with a good jump through the field. Your top 6 or so single filed out. It's side by side from Chris Shearburn on back as the field survives their first trip through turns 1 and 2.
Great job of giving, taking 1 and 2. That's not a corner you want to contest side by side. Now down to the wider end of the racetrack. 3 and 4. You see a clear bottom lane, a clear top lane. The bottom lane, harder on the tires. The top lane, a little closer to the wall, a little more dangerous.
The 50 Ray Alfalla, the white Toyota on the bottom, the one mission of Ashton Crowder beating him in that battle, but up towards the front of the field, Mitchell DeYoung maintaining control. Playoff drivers will be in Coca-Cola red. That is both on your timing screen at the top and on the race cars. So when we look at the ticker at the top on the left-hand side of your screen, the drivers highlighted in red are your 10 playoff drivers. You can also identify them on track by the red markers on the front bumper, the windshield banner, the roof number, the shark fins or the roof rails, and that rear spoiler. They will all be red for your 10 playoff drivers. We'll do our best to let you know where they are at all times. And clearly, playoff drivers strong early. 8 of your top 13 running positions on track are championship hopefuls at the moment. As we take a step back there and a brief look at the 25-minute Gottinger, defending series champion, not fighting to defend his title this year.
I'm a big fan of this playoff format. You know, in the real world of NASCAR, we have 16 drivers. So we had drivers make the playoffs without winning a race. Here in eNASCAR, the exact opposite, Evan. We had more drivers win than there were spots available in the playoffs. I was excited by that, even though it cost Letard Sport a spot with Chris Sherburne. I love the competition. I think these drivers that have made it have proven they're very worthy to be in the playoffs.
And we'll take another look here as you can detail the differences between the playoff drivers, left-hand side of your screen, with all of those red areas that I mentioned. All of the non-playoff drivers will be marked in white on all the same spots. The splitter, the windshield banner, the roof number, the roof rails, and that spoiler will be in white. So red drivers in the playoff, white drivers not in the playoffs. Those are how those indicators will help you mark where our championship drivers are. But Nick Ottinger's in a bit of a playoff sandwich right now, behind Leahy and Bolin, but ahead of Mike Conti, and this is not the battle for the lead. Mitchell DeYoung has actually done a very good job, Steve, early in this race of opening up about a 1.3 second advantage against this second pack of 5 cars.
You know, we talked about this in the 80s and the 90s of NASCAR, and it doesn't really apply much anymore. We see these crazy pack races, but the whole, ideology of racing the racetrack, it still exists here at Darlington, and I think Mitchell's doing a nice job with the lead. But even back here in traffic, you want to attack when you can. You want to try to take positions when you can. But if you get too comfortable, it will reach out and make a mistake. And here's the perfect opportunity to look at this going down into turn 1.
Bob Bryan is the onboard look that we are on with now. And of course, if you're enjoying tonight's action and want to get in on some of the fun, now's the time to do so, because with iRacing, every day is race day. For more information on how to start your sim racing career, visit iRacing.com today. Bryant is the lowest of the championship hopefuls, running 35th position at the moment. And we encourage you to follow along with these playoffs with us all season long to keep up to date on the schedule, the standings, and even how you could qualify to be in this series one day. You can find all of that at iRacing.com/eNASCAR. But Bryant 35th and Busa 24th right now, significantly further behind than the rest of the playoff drivers. Egan Leahy's got his work full, though. He cannot get away from Graham Bolin, who's done a pretty good job of keeping him honest here in a battle for second on back.
We mentioned the iRacing platform. The tracks are so realistic, the setups, the tire wear, even the sun. As we were on board going down the back straightaway, that is a major point of contention with these drivers. It'll be an issue this weekend in the Southern 500. You know, there's this moment in time where their sun hasn't quite fallen behind that building in turn 3. It really gets on the windshield. It becomes hard to see, especially racing other cars becomes a very big issue.
It is tricky, and we'll talk about how the conditions change as well. As I mentioned, that sun is going to set. It's going to get cooler. The track will change as we race into the evening here at Darlington. The in-sim time is just about 7 o'clock in Darlington, South Carolina, so we are getting closer and closer to sunset in this opening round of this postseason. But the opening 10 laps of this one have gotten complete pretty quickly without incident, as we take a step back and look at Matt Busa, the driver who made that miraculous walk-off win at Michigan International Speedway 2 weeks back. His second career win, but he's got a little bit of work to do right now in the back half of the field, running 22nd position. We always talk about momentum, Steve, and depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers, right? How much can momentum help you? If somebody has it, it has to be Matt Busa, but at least not helping him early. Good news for him, it is a long race. And talking about this being the Southern 500, or our version of it at least, a nice little throwback look on that number 75 Mode Motorsports Ford. A bit of a different look than what he normally has. A couple of drivers sporting some cool retro paints tonight.
Oh, I love the retro paint schemes. But, you know, when I look at Busa, one thing I'd consider is he was really the last driver in the playoffs, so other drivers perhaps have prepared more for Darlington than he was able to prepare himself.
Yeah, some drivers, if they knew they'd been in for 3 weeks, they really didn't care about Michigan. That team had to devote a lot of time, and mentioning that the mode cars are doing some throwback paint schemes tonight. There is the look with Jake Nichols, the local South Carolinian, just behind Ray Alfala, in that iconic number 24 car and sporting an iconic look on that number 24 Ford this weekend. So hats off to the Kyle Long crew and everybody at Mode Motorsports and Mode Media House for having a little bit of fun with this one and sporting some throwback paints. Nichols is 17th position behind Ray Alfala. Those cars have not changed positions. They run exactly where they took the green flag from some 13 laps ago in this race. And we talk strategy. If this race were to go green and you can stretch it a little bit, you could make this race on a 2-stop strategy, but that'll all depend on the fuel number. Something tells me the tires may be more of the indicator on what really we can do than what you've got in the tank. But we mentioned how in 1 and 2, Steve, when you were talking about the racetrack, these drivers would kind of get through there and then try to spread things out a little bit. I think these guys are driving with their heads screwed on tight so far.
Yeah, I've been very impressive. This is a track that's difficult, but the proximity these guys have, there's a lot of give and take because guys do lose a little bit of pace. Like right down here into turn 3, you can tell this 10 car is perhaps holding up to 25, the 10 kind of running up against the wall. The 25 has that look low, and it's easy to kind of get turned down there, much like it is down here. Same look, right? This is going into turn 3. You can look below that car in front of you, but it's hard to actually make it complete a pass as we're on board Nathan Lyon. The question now is, will Nathan concede the spot into turn 1? He will. That is a young man who has watched a lot of NASCAR races. That's a wise move. Just give the spot up 16 laps into the race.
You're not worth it 16 laps into the race. He'll probably fight for it if there were 16 laps left to go in the race. Had an opportunity to have Tony Stewart on our Countdown to Green coverage. I want to welcome Tony back into the broadcast booth now. Tony, thanks for giving us just a little bit more of your time and talking about sim racing. Sim racing has had quite an integral part in your life up until this point. Have you been doing any more sim racing as of late?
Yeah, it's pretty much all I've ever done in my life. So it's hard to get away from that when that's all you've done. It's all, when I was a little kid, that's all I ever wanted to do was drive race cars. And even my buddies that I raced with in go-karts back in the day, I mean, we would sit there and, we would be really good friends till Saturday about noon. And then we all hated each other because we all had to go race with each other and wanted to beat each other. But literally, as soon as the races were over, we'd all kind of run around and get organized on, hey, Sunday, what time are we going to meet each other to go ride bikes and where are we going and all that. So it was, it's something that ever since I can remember, that's all I've ever wanted to do was be a part of motorsports and, to be able to have sim and sim teams now to be able to spend, I mean, literally there's no sessions that last under about 8 hours when I get on there. So, once I sit in the chair, I'm pretty much there till I can't feel my rear end anymore.
Well, tonight at least you're a spectator, right? Watching your guys represented in the field with Stewart Haas Esports. When you're watching your drivers compete at this very top level like this, do you get any nerves tuning into a race?
It is. It's it's a different scenario than when it was when I was driving because I was always nervous before the race when I was driving. I felt comfortable once I got in the car, where now it's a role reversal where I'm not really nervous till the guys get in the car and then the car leaves pit road and these guys start the races, whether it's on iRacing, whether it's with the full-size cars. I mean, once the race starts, it's out of our hands and, you can have a plan and have a strategy, but that changes lap to lap and, it's in the driver's hands, and that's the part that's probably hard for me to get used to is, knowing that it's in their hands, not mine anymore.
We've seen quite a turnaround with the cars this year. What has been the key to those differences?
Two good drivers. That's the biggest thing. It's just having guys that, we know have confidence and are comfortable during the races. And, they do a good job during the week getting the setups right where they want them. And in the race, they know when to push. They know when to sit there. And, it's risk versus reward every lap. So these guys are smart. They know when to push, when not to push. And, the results are showing because of that.
We're looking forward to seeing how they race over the course of this race and for the rest of the season. Tony, thanks so much for sticking by and chatting with us. Tony Stewart on the broadcast here for the playoff opener of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And let's ride on board, get the driver's perspective from Darlington. It's the Coca-Cola onboard camera with Corey Vincent.
Always great to ride on board, and Corey Vincent giving us a great view of Darlington, and I love the audio. I love the work he has on the throttle pedal, anything really but wide open throttle all the way around this place. A lot of part throttle, a lot of patience. You see on the right his focus. Pretty calm behind the wheel though, Evan. It didn't seem like a lot of pressure. I tensed up a little bit the one time. He was a little high on the one. I thought the one was coming up. Here he is right on the rear bumper.
Yeah, so key for him to be calm in those situations and not overreact. And he has been cool and collected, maintaining a P15 from which he started in this race. And that onboard was a very different look of what we saw these drivers doing at Michigan 2 weeks ago. It just shows you how versatile you have to be to find success in this series. Of course, very unique challenges coming later on in this opening round of the playoffs with the Bristol and Talladega. Let's see the onboard perspective now with Graham Bolin, who rides in the number 3 spot. He is up 1 from the get-go. Recently making a pass on Nick Ottinger. You can see the red roof rails and the red spoiler off of the back of his number 10 Smithfield Ford, and all the white decals on the 25 of Ottinger, who may have caught the fence that time at a 2. Thought maybe Michael Conti would set him up for a pass in 3. He opts not to, but I don't think Graham Bolin has blinked since we checked in with him. He is locked in right now and trying to apply some pressure, trying to get up to Keegan Leahy, who's about 6 or 7 car lengths up the road.
One thing I like about Bolin, it just proves that there's so many different ways to feel comfortable behind the wheel. Vincent, we couldn't even see the steering wheel. Hands much lower, looked like the wheel was a little bit farther away from him. Bolin, wheel a little bit higher, a little bit closer, almost more of an open wheel look. That's kind of the line of sight for an open wheel driver. So it just proves, the ergonomics of a race car or a sim rig. There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah, you can do so many different things with the hardware, as we see Ottinger come down to the inside. Bolin gonna fight him for it here, though. Does not let him go. Ottinger cannot make that 25 Chevrolet stick on the bottom, and Bolin has successfully defended P3. But you got all those differences in the hardware, but as well, these drivers can set up the actual in-sim experience a lot for them as well. They can decide if they want to see the steering wheel on their screen or not, if they want to see a driver's hands and gloves on their screen, and a lot of them will actually modify the graphics adjustments. What we're looking at right now, at a quick glance, Steve, could often be confused for real-life racing. That's how good this sim looks. But some of these drivers will say, you know what, I don't know if I really want the sun beating down onto my windshield to make it hard to drive. They'll actually modify some of the graphic settings to limit distractions. Some drivers will get rid of the grandstands to not want those distractions. Other drivers will want to keep all of those other elements around the racing surface there for braking points and whatnot. It's really unlimited what these drivers can do to kind of custom tailor their experience in the iRacing service.
Yeah, custom tailor, but I'm going to tell you the racing experience right here, very concerned with that move of Bolin to defend. Now, he has every right to drive down into turn 1 too wide, but if contact between the 25 and the 10 happens, you have to ask yourself, was it worth it? That's a move that I expect late in the race, but it seems very early, and now we're going to see right here a good run from the 8.
And Steve, I was listening to these guys as they rolled off the grid tonight, Michael Conti and Adam Benefiel, his spotter and his crew chief. And Michael told his spotter, don't be afraid to tell me how to drive this race car. Whether I have to save tires, whether I have to push, what I have to do to conserve fuel, be vocal tonight. I need all the information that I can get. But on the other side, he's been quiet for most of the evening. You can see him right here just logging his own race. His roommate across the room, Logan Clampett, has been on the move. He made a move a few laps ago for position number 8 and has continued to push forward, get some laps, get some clean air, and now makes the move on Shearburn. Logan Clampett's on the move tonight, boys.
Working hard. He's doing a good job. Up to P6. Logan, I know, is one of the fan favorites. He is the tail end of the top 6 drivers, which is occupied by 5 playoff cars. And, of course, you can see to our right-hand side of that shot, to his left-hand side, would be the onboard perspective that we had just a little bit ago with Michael Conti. You see drivers, of course, racing out of the same room. Different teams. Both Chevys, though, so we'll call that a technical alliance. The roommates racing together.
Well, you talk about technical, they're giving the internet a test. This is a one internet drop, and we're going to lose 2 competitors.
They have got a lot of faith in that. And speaking of teammate duos, here is the Richmond Raceway Esports Group. Zach Novak in the number 9 machine, the lead car in this duo right now, riding in the number 11 position. Of course, we talk about all the success that Zach has had historically in this series, the 2019 series champion, but no red markers, not a playoff driver this year. His teammate, Jimmy Mullis, is into the playoffs. Of course, Mullis was able to kind of take care of business at New Hampshire earlier this year to get himself in. He is kind of just following his teammate through the field right now in position number 12. That situation where one of your team cars isn't in the playoffs could actually be of benefit, because you could make Zach Novak test a couple of things out before you put it on to Mullis's car. And when we get to a place like a Talladega a little bit later on this year in these playoffs, Steve, they could work together and try to help each other out. But Michael Conti is trying to get around Graham Bull, and they are on each other's door in 1 and 2. And Conti got sideways. That is the second time in a row that Bolin will not give up that P3 spot. And that time it got a lot closer because Conti far more aggressive than Ottinger was.
And I'll be vocal. I just don't like this plan out of Bolin. 38 laps into the race, he's clearly slower. I think right here he needs to concede the position. Okay, he does. He concedes the position that time to Conti. I like that plan right here. I think Ottinger's faster as well. I think he just needs to let Ottinger go. Look, I want to see people race, but you also have to survive the race. And I think Bolin's putting himself in a very bad position. I think while these guys actually have more patience than perhaps the real-life drivers, it's just so easy. You force the guy to push the issue, and next thing you know, you're collecting.
And Ottinger, I think, maybe is dealing with an uphill battle here because, we talked about how aggressive Conti was on that pass. Conti really needs the spot. I wonder if Bolin's thinking, I'm going to make Ottinger get uncomfortable here. The last thing that Nick Ottinger wants to do is make contact with a playoff car. So maybe Graham knows that and is kind of forcing the 25 to kind of force the issue here, right? And see just how aggressive he'll be. We'll see if it happens. Certainly Ottinger, though, wants to make a pass sooner rather than later because Logan Clampett has been pressuring the 25. So here goes Ottinger looking bottom. But again, he's just not willing to throw it in there door to door with a playoff guy. And I really think that's what Bolin is trying to exploit here.
Well, but, the other thing we have to discuss is, right, there's a team championship out there, which is really a combination of 2 cars for each organization. So even the cars that haven't made the playoffs need to go out there and try to gain as many points as possible. Oh, here we go. Now Ottinger's going to run up a lane, try to get that exit speed off turn 3. He should turn left right here, I imagine. Has a little bit of a run. Nope, he stays in line. I think I'm starting to see why I'm so poor at this, because my patience would have been worn out already.
Maybe it's a little bit easier to be patient, when you're racing in your sim rig at home and it's air conditioned, and the only thing you really got to worry about is mental fatigue and maybe a bit of physical fatigue a little bit later on. It's not like you're in a 150-degree race car where those tempers, I think, are more inclined to be a little bit short. But again, if Ottinger doesn't get around Bolin here, he's going to get, pressured by Clampett. Ryan Luza isn't that far back. Look at all these cars stacking up behind Graham Bolin. So he is just running in the middle of the road right now. And like I said, making it as difficult as possible. Ottinger peaks, but lifts, and he just doesn't want to take out Bolin. And again, I think Bolin is very aware that Nick Ottinger does not want to cause an incident between those 2 cars. And maybe that's why he's getting away with a little bit more. If that was a playoff driver behind Graham Bolin, I don't think he would be as timid. So if Clampett can get up to him, expect very similar to what we saw to Michael Conti, right? Throwing it in, putting it right on his door, and taking the issue to him. But Graham Bolin feels clearly like the defensive of the track position there is more important than the risk of maybe causing some issues here as he fights vehemently to hang on to P4.
Well, 43 laps into the race, we expect pit stops around lap 60. If the guys can stretch it, maybe 61. We heard cars being shut off and being clutched all the way back on the pace laps, trying to get to that first fuel window. So we'll see who has conserved the correct amount of fuel to make that window. But this battle continues to be very heated. Just inside the top 5 with Graham Bolin in that 10 car running 4th. We have Nick Ottinger running 5th, Logan Clampett 6th, Ryan Luza 7th, Chris Shearburn 8th, all in a line.
We talked earlier about how Bob Bryant was the lowest of the 10 playoff cars so far, Tim Terry, and Bryant still sitting 31st. You get an update with the 77.
Yeah, the lady in black has bit the 77 car. Bob Bryant put it into the wall in the middle of 3 and 4. You can see the right front fender of that race car cracked. You take a look at the replay on the right-hand side. His quote after this happened, "That was 100% unnecessary, completely my fault." So Bob now hoping to come down and get a pit stop to get this thing maybe massaged a little bit. Right there, you just see it drove it into the wall. And Steve, to your point, we were talking to some of these drivers about the strategies, and some of them were contemplating that 3-stop strategy, crunching the numbers, and they said if it goes green, 3 stops probably not the way to go. A lot of these teams leaning on 2 stops here this evening.
We're basically on or around lap 60, looking around lap 120, 121, stretching that last one to 183. Which is a little surprising with the pace of the race falling off about 1.5 seconds, 1 3/4 seconds. I think there is some math that you could run. Look at this mess right here. I hate to see that 36 of Sherburne right there in the middle of it. That ECU paint scheme on it, the purple and yellow. Man, that's a mess.
We talked about the playoffs, Steve, and to that point, we mentioned that there were more race winners than there were playoff spots available. So because of that, your driver, Chris Sherburne, even though he had a race win earlier this year at Kansas, did not make the show. I think he's got kind of a bone to pick, and he wants to prove his worth here, get out there and put in some good runs and kind of show these guys, listen, I deserve the playoff spot just as much as anybody else did, and maybe make a statement headed into next season. So I think Chris is going to be one of the most aggressive of the non-playoff guys.
Yeah, I think to your point, he wants to prove that he was deserving of the playoffs, even though he didn't score enough points, and I'm a big fan of the system. You know, he got a little behind with some incidents, and those incident points started racking up, and he had to kind of be a little more conservative than he needed to be at a couple of races, but that's all part of the system. Everyone races under the same rules, right? You have to manage the season. 14 races can be a long time.
The biggest mover on the racetrack is Matt Busa. He runs 9th of the 10 playoff cars, but has been steadily improving until right there. He went way down low. At turn number 4, he had just completed the pass on Jake Nichols, but got a little bit squirrely off of 4. Fortunately, there is a lot of room to catch that race car off of the racing surface here at Darlington, but he does lose a spot in that exchange, so he will drop down to +6. And no longer the biggest mover. There's a couple of drivers in that same ballpark. Up front, Clampett's +7. Behind them, Blake Reynolds is +7 as well. So there's a handful of drivers being able to make up some spots, but Busa has a real good opportunity with 4 or 5 cars all right up the road from him here to get a lot of critical passes made. As we'll take a second look at what happened here with the 4 car, or I should say the 75 car off of turn number 4. Watch this from the onboard. He enters a little bit lower. He's completing a pass. Look at his rear view right there. Gets around the 24, steps up into line, and just a little bit of counter steer. He didn't even get out of the gas, I don't think, Steve, but just kind of scrubbed off it off speed there for that 24 to get on by.
Well, we continue to see cars slip, slide around. That's how I think why all these guys are stacked up. I think Chris Sherburne is a little off the pace on old tires, and I think that's what's forced these guys to stack right up. I mean, you see the back of the cars moving around, 51 laps on the tires, and it just amazes me. You know, if you make a mistake right here, even if you make no contact with the wall, you're going to lose 5, 6, 7 spots. I mean, the positions are so tight.
I'm seeing a little bit of left rear damage there on Dylan Duvall's number 41. He's directly behind Matt Busa here in line. That is not wall damage if it's on the left side of the race car. So quite evidently, Dylan Duvall had gotten into somebody at some point in this race. That's not to say that you can't get a Darlington stripe or 2 and get away with it. That's part of this racing. I would like the onboard view we saw with Bob Bryant a little bit ago, kind of bouncing off the fence like that a bit more than you want. This time by 52 laps down from Darlington, and pit stops are on the horizon, but it has been all Mitchell DeYoung in the playoff opener for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.
We've learned to savor the moments that were always there, and they never tasted this good.
I am a driver with a dream. And part of that dream is making all the doubters believe that my name belongs here. I may be new to some, but I am not to be taken lightly.
Oh, and now they're really going at it. Yeah, they are.
Because if you let your guard down, I will rise above. I am the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I am NASCAR.
It doesn't matter where you're from, who you grew up rooting for, what you grew up watching, your home track, your favorite car, the series you've always wanted to race in. When you're ready to know what it's like, we're here, bringing you as close to the action as it gets with the ultimate sim racing experience. With a community of hundreds of thousands just like you. This is iRacing, and here, every day is race day.
And back live from the virtual Darlington Raceway, coverage of tonight's race is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. By DoorDash, proud sponsor of 2311 Racing. And by Placey, the official racing chair of eNASCAR. Close it in on pit stops in the playoff opener for the 2021 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. We see Brad Davies on pit road. So pit stops have begun, and I believe our race leader, Mitchell DeYoung, is diving to pit road maybe with a flat tire. That was a very late decision, but Mitchell DeYoung dives to pit road at lap number 58.
Man, you just see how difficult the pit entry is for these guys. It's so far off the banking. You get onto that flat, the car just wants to go straight. But all of these drivers doing a nice job. The concern at lap 59, I know they had some pace laps, but these seem to be a lap, maybe 2 laps short of that magical 61 lap number for the two-stop window.
We talked about some of these drivers trying to save on those pace laps. We had about 4 of them. So that does mean that you're going to have less fuel in the car coming to the start of that opening run than you will obviously get it off the pit lane this time through. So they may have stretched it all the way they could, but once a couple of your race leaders come down, expect a lot of them to follow suit. Michael Conti, the driver at Concord, North Carolina, cycles through to the race lead. He will be diving to pit road this time. Much more in control of the entry, but look at Graham Bolin, who comes from some 6 car lengths back into the corner, Steve, made up a ton of time on the entry to the pit lane there. And that's what makes this so difficult, right? If you weren't worried about being efficient and getting caught on pit road entry, well, then it would be fine because everybody would go really slow. But the reason pit road entry here is so difficult is because there's so much time to be made and or lost that eventually maybe Mitchell DeYoung had a flat. I think he might have just locked it up. This is all I saw. The car broke sideways at once. Late commit to pit road. Either way, he did get it down to pit road in time, but I wonder how much time that slide may have cost him.
That's an impressive trip to pit road. Very thankful that he didn't have any issues.
You can see Clamp it down to the pit lane. Vicente Salas down to the pit lane behind him as well. That will mean that all of your playoff drivers have pitted really in just the blink of an eye, and strategy is what we expected it to be right in and around lap number 60. So with all of that, Casey Kerwin will cycle through to the race lead, still waiting on your lead 14 cars to come down for service. But don't expect them to get much further than this, as you'll see Keegan Leahy go and unlap himself. Leahy, through the pit cycle, has gotten ahead of his teammate Mitchell DeYoung and should cycle back to become the leader once this thing rounds itself through. So that's pretty big.
Yeah, that's huge, right? I mean, that's right so far. That's the easiest place to pass someone is on the pit cycle. I'm a little surprised that Casey Kerwin continues to run. I mean, once you get into your basically your two-stop window, I think you'd want to come right away, as we see the 41 peel off the banking and come to pit lane just because the tires fall off on grip. You're losing so much time. I think you need to find your way to pit lane.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, the only thing you could think of, right, is they want a little bit more fuel in case we have overtime, but they have ample sets of tires available. I don't know if I would recommend staying out on 50, 60 lap old tires for a late race restart. So we'll see what the game is. Maybe Kerwin wants to stretch it, catch a yellow. That's often a strategy that some drivers try to employ when they don't quite have the speed they want in the car and really just want to mix things up. But we've seen a couple more drivers trickle down. Dylan Duvall's off the pit lane this time by. You can see hitting pit road now is Blake Reynolds from a top 10 position. His number 66 car's in. Garrett Main says that he will be in this time. But these drivers going 64, 65 laps, I think makes me feel a little bit more comfortable, Steve, about those guys who pitted, at 58 or so. If you can go 65 on a run, then even though those guys pitted maybe a little bit early on this stint, they should be able to make this race on a two-stopper.
Yeah, that tells me that the drivers at 58 or 59, that's their two-stop window. They're not stretching it. Once they got to their window, they pitted new tires on as quick as they could. As we see Garrett Maines come onto pit road, looked like a pretty controlled entry for the offer pad number 2.
It was a weird commit for the 2 car. I think he
Yeah.
pulled into the wrong pit stall. I think Garrett Maines went into the wrong box.
I don't know what I was seeing there. It looked like he was stopping before. So this pit road, as you see right here, those are tunnels. So the pit lane pops back out and then comes back to more stalls. That happens at a couple locations. Garrett Maines definitely was in the wrong pit box because he was in pit boxes before pit lane, which is way earlier than his position.
And now drag racing down pit road with Casey Kerwin. Kerwin's going to have to get into his box here ahead of Garrett Maines, and these drivers nearly drove into each other. So Maines is going to lose a little bit of time by that blunder on pit road. Let's ride on board with Mitchell DeYoung. He is chasing down the driver who will be the new race leader if he can't get to him, his teammate Keegan Leahy. This is the DoorDash onboard camera.
See on the left side of your screen, out the driver's window on the right side, you see Mitchell going to work. Just amazes me. Down that backstretch into turn 3, that sun is so distracting, especially when you're tight battle. Oh man, traffic right here for the second place car of Mitchell DeYoung. He does a nice job getting around the traffic, but you see 4 or 5 car lengths that cost him to his teammate Keegan Leahy. No surprise that Keegan made the time on and off pit road. Mitchell DeYoung, a fabulous sim racer, especially at the road courses. Once again, that sun, you see just how difficult it is, but not a lot of experience at the NASCAR circuits. Place like Darlington, he mentioned it even in his pre-race interview that he was already concerned about pit road entry. Where you take the other side of that, Keegan Leahy, that has so much experience at a place like Darlington, it doesn't surprise me that he attacked, made up over a couple seconds on his teammate. And you see on the right side, Keegan, sometimes I think you need to check his pulse. When you see him in the sim, he does.
There you go.
A little bit
That'll
of work
wake
on the
him
wheel
up.
there, though. A little bit of work on the wheel, but he looks calm, doesn't he, Evan? Like a Sunday drive almost.
Even after that, just one exhale and he's locked back in. And, just looking at the numbers, Mitchell DeYoung was only 0.4 of a second slower than Keegan was on pit road, right? It's very clear that with the advantage Mitchell pitted from to the disadvantage he left that pit cycle with, is that time was lost both entering and exiting pit road. And I wondered if that slide in 3 would hurt him. The eventual answer was yes, it did. But I mean, these are teammates, right? It may not be a huge cause for concern now because we're in the round of 10, but Obviously, the goal for 2311 is to get both of these cars into the championship 4. I can only wonder what those debriefs and practice sessions will be like over the course of the next few weeks, as you've got 2 of these team cars running to the front of the field. And these Toyotas have been some of the best qualifiers all year. I mentioned this is round 15 of the season, and it was Mitchell DeYoung's 5th pole position. So he's on pole 1 out of every 3 races in this series. But Keegan has had his handful as well. On pole earlier this year at Homestead, at Auto Club, at Charlotte. I mean, the 2311 Toyota is almost representing half of the pole positions, and tonight they have found that extra element, which is that great race pace that has them in control in 1st and 2nd position. Jimmy Mullis is up a handful of spots, +5 to P6, and he is trying to get around that number 4 of Ryan Luza. So we talk about the points. How do you get yourself in to the championship 4? Well, there it is. Right-hand side of your screen. A win locks you into the championship 4. Keegan Leahy leading at the very top of the board. And the difference right there between Jimmy Mullis's 46 machine and Graham Boland's 10, who is just 1 position behind him, it's 1 point. I mean, we're sending, see, if you talk about our playoffs versus that of the NASCAR Cup Series, right, as Garrett Maines gets around the leader on fresh tires. In the Cup Series, it's very gradual, right? You go from 16 to 12, and your objective in that round is just to be okay. No major mistakes, get some solid finishes in. And eventually, you're going to slowly start to ramp up how perfect you need to be through the round of 12, then the 8. There is none of that in a 4-race, 2-round championship here in eNASCAR. Right off the bat, you got to be top 4 or you're done. And in these 3 weeks, I mean, it is really leaving 0 room for error with how these playoffs are structured.
Well, and I would say it's going to take a win. I really believe that, if you want to feel great about it, you have to win a race. I know someone's guaranteed to get in on points, 3 races, 4 seats at the table, but I believe you're going to see 3 different winners, and they're going to be all playoff cars. This field is just too good. As we mentioned, there are winners that didn't even make the playoffs. And look at where they're currently running tonight. I mean, playoff cars dominate the top 10. So I think your mentality needs to be win. You must win to guarantee yourself a spot.
We continue to race into the sunset here in Darlington, South Carolina. Mitchell DeYoung still trying to get the race lead back from his teammate Keegan Leahy. And you talk about being comfortable. Something we talked about a couple of weeks ago at Michigan State was that, our regular season finale here at Michigan wasn't quite the same as in the Cup Series at Daytona, but kind of raced like a plate race, so it had that intensity. Well, the end of this round, the last race of this round 1, where we will determine those championship 4, is a plate race. It's Talladega, so you just saw what an elimination race is like at a super speedway just this past weekend with NBC at Daytona. We've got that coming up in 2 weeks. That's why I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. I want no doubt headed into a Talladega race in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, listen, I say it in the NASCAR series. You start in February, where the race in August at Daytona doesn't matter for your playoff hopes. It's no different here in eNASCAR. You start these playoffs hoping, trying, pleading to find your way. As we see a pass for the lead right there, Mitchell finally gets by his teammate Keegan Leahy. Keegan kind of gives the spot up getting into turn 1. Not a big surprise, but you do not want to depend on Talladega.
We just see the pass for the race lead there. DeYoung gets around Keegan Leahy. He goes back to the race lead. And the pass we saw just prior to that was between these two. Look at the live points on the right-hand side of your screen. It has flipped. Logan Clampett passing Jimmy Mullis on track. That 1 point difference now puts Clampett +1, Mullis -1. A lot of the topics of conversation in the Cup Series, Steve, is about playoff points and all these bonus points that drivers have accrued over the course of the regular season. You don't really have that quite drastically in this series. You only get 3 bonus points for race wins. A little bit of an older style at the Chase playoffs. So everybody restarted this round even at 2,003 points except Mitchell DeYoung. He is the only driver with an advantage, and it's only by 3 points. So there are no big advantages to having good regular seasons, as we see Jimmy Mullis's perspective in P7.
You see him on the right side, the focus on the face. He looks a little more intense than Keegan Leahy did. Same amount of wheel action, though. A little bit of oversteer on corner exit. Seems like it gets a little bit free up by the wall. They're looking at about 20 or so laps on these tires. The rear grip starting to go away. It's a little snug in the middle of the corner and a little bit free off. No surprise. That's kind of your balance usually here. This end of the racetrack normally a little bit tighter in the middle. Let's see, he gets down to the middle, watch that steering wheel. Yeah, it seems to be pretty calm, hands in the middle, and then, oh, you see that loose off. Looks a little tight through the middle, but definitely still free off.
It's almost like, he didn't move for that entire shot until the end when the car bobbled, and then he kind of straightened his back out and kind of had to wake himself up, right? You got to stay on your toes. You can't get complacent at a track here like Darlington. Watching Zach Novak battle, but here comes Vicente Salas. He wants P10 back. He goes underneath the 2019 series champion. Zach Novak is not going to roll over. He'll fight him off the corner. They almost got into each other that time. And again, later into this race now, with 100 laps to go, we are seeing those non-playoff cars give it to the playoff drivers just a little bit more. Vicente Salas running right now of the playoff drivers, 8th best of those 10. And we continue to see that sun going a little bit further and further down below that turn number 3 wall each time through. So we talk about the visual challenges, Steve, of the sun being in your eyes and, some of those things, but we talk about the racetrack changing as well. When you start a race in the evening where the sun's been beaten on it all day and the sun's still on the racing surface when you take the green flag, and you race into this kind of middle point where we're not quite under the lights yet, but you really don't have any of the sun on track. I mean, what is changing with the track right now that these drivers, crew chiefs, spotters, the teams as a whole are going to have to make sure they're staying on top of?
Well, the first thing is you can see the color of the surface. As the tire rubber wears into the surface, it definitely loses grip, loses a little bit of that traction that the drivers look for. But then as the sun goes down, some of that grip will come back into the racetrack. I've always found in my career, though, as the track cools, the front end of the race car seems to gain grip quicker than the rear. So normally, if you're a little bit tight, the track will come to you. If you're a little bit free, you need to start making some adjustments because that freeness normally gets worse as you go into the night. As we ride on board with Bobby Zielinski right here, the same very intense look of Bobby. I've kind of got used to this look right here, watching him run so much. Still, the road course specialist running that road course kind of Formula One wheel. Very interesting for the ovals, but it's what he's comfortable with.
Yeah, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen the onboard, the virtual wheel. That's what a stock car wheel looks like, not clearly what Bobby Zielinski's running. A lot of drivers will switch to that Formula-style wheel, that open-wheel wheel, when we go to a road course. That's obviously where Bobby thrives, but Steve, I got to wonder, have you had any conversations with your driver about how that's the wheel he's comfortable with, even on the ovals?
No, but I've made a note. I didn't know he ran it as much. At a place like Darlington, I do think it hurts him because his hand position is so set. At the road course, your steering angle and how much you turn the wheel is very consistent. But here at Darlington, from lap 1 to lap 50 on tires, your steering wheel angle and how much wheel you have to put in it, and the differences between turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, you can see right here. That's quite a bit of wheel, and I think he might be a little bit more comfortable with a regular wheel, but he's also in the playoffs with a win at an oval, so he obviously knows what he's doing.
Yeah, we talk about him being the road course specialist, but Mitchell DeYoung has been the driver that has taken that challenge to him this year. Bobby's win did come at Pocono to lock himself into these 2021 playoffs. One driver way to the inside. That was Brian Schoenberg's number 47. As he got a little bit loose, got out of the way for Casey Kerwin. All of this in and around Bobby Z, who rides in the number 10 position right now on the doorstep of the likes of Vicente Salas and others, as Salas now has been able to get around Zielinski, drop Zielinski down to position number 11. 2 laps away from being halfway home in this Darlington 250. Let's take in the sights and sounds of the track Too Tough to Tame with some iRacing Full Throttle. And the caution flag comes at lap number 94, crossing to 95 for your race leaders. And after we were starting to settle in for a run that would have seen green flag pit stops to come, this changes a lot and brings us under the yellow flag, basically just past the halfway point in this Southern 250, shy of what pit stops would allow us to make it the distance. So this is really going to change the strategy complexion of a race that had been caution-free, Steve, till this point.
Yeah, caution-free and clean. We haven't really seen any real issues. A few cars have touched the wall and some good hard racing, but now with the caution with 89 to go, no doubt all of these drivers will be coming to pit road for fresh tires and adjustments, and then it'll be how do you try to consume the last 84 or 5 laps when we see the restart.
The race leaders are down to the pit lane, but let's watch what happened. Bob Bryant's number 77 car, the 33 behind him, and Taylor Hurst kind of pulled in line, and then when he pulled to get out of line, he just didn't leave enough room for the 77 car, and Bob Bryant got hooked around. Don't think it was on purpose, Steve, but maybe a little bit too aggressive, trying to side draft him. Let's see it from his view.
Yeah, going down into turn 1, trying to pull the 77 back, and as you mentioned, just too close contact. You know, I love the idea of the side draft, but you need to leave enough room for the 77 to have any sort of movement, and right there was contact to the left rear quarter panel.
The tough break, the 77, the only driver that goes around in that instance. Fortunately, really isn't a ton of damage for Bob Bryant in that case. If he had gotten turned at the start-finish line, probably would have ended up into the fence, but because he spun down in turn number 1, was able to lock it up and just get that touch on the right rear. Here's what Ray Alfala saw from behind this, about 2-3 car lengths. You can see Hurst looking to the inside. There goes Bryant down to the bottom, and smart call by Alfala to go to the inside. If he had held his position on the banking, that probably would have been exactly where Bob Bryant slid up and into him. So all of your race leaders down pit road for service. Mitchell DeYoung gets 4. He is in and out first, and he will maintain the race lead. But this is no longer a 2-stop race, Steve. Without this yellow, these drivers would have driven it closer to about the lap 120, 125 range or so. Then they would have pitted, and then they would have been able to go to the distance. Right now, everybody pitted because they had gone some 20-something laps on the tires, but nobody can make it to the end from this point. So we still have a pit stop between us and the end, as you can see, again, the drivers highlighted in red, your playoff drivers occupying the bulk of the top 10.
Yeah, you see all the playoff drivers there, 1 through 17 right there. So let's check in with the driver of the 77, Bob Bryant. Bob, it looked like just a little bit of contact on that left rear, maybe a side draft kind of gone wrong. How did you see it from your view?
Yeah, I think Taylor kind of got sucked into the side of my car there, and it just gradually hooked me. Pretty disappointing, to be honest. Thought we were doing fine. We were just kind of running our line, and got ran over in a straight line. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? Doesn't look like a lot of damage, though. Seems like something you could get repaired and kind of settle back in.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully. We had a little less than 30 seconds there, so I don't think it's going to kill us, but we'll probably be pretty well off pace the rest of the night, which thinks we have, nobody to blame but ourselves. I boned the qualifying lap and put us back with the squirrels. So, oh well.
Understood. Understand the frustration as well, Evan, as I see it kind of the same as Bob Bryant. Not much he can do, contact with the left rear. But on the left-hand side, once again, all the drivers in red are your playoff drivers. You see them 1 and 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. Zielinski back there in 12th, stacked up, 86 to go. We talk about pit stops. We're going to see a green flag pit stop, and I imagine this is going to come somewhere in the middle of this 86-lap run. If tires didn't fall off, Evan, I think you could run a long ways, run as far as you can on fuel, stop for just a splash of fuel and 2 right side tires. But here at Darlington, where tires fall off and grip goes away, I expect to see these guys pit right dead in the middle of this segment for 4 fresh tires and have as much time on fresh tires as possible.
Well, let's see how the 2311 Toyotas navigate the first restart of the evening. It'll put lap number 98 behind us with 85 laps to go. Green flag is back in the air. Next to Barney, the flag stand, we race off to turn number 1. Cleared for the race lead is Mitchell DeYoung, side by side for third. Ottinger on the inside, but Clampett trying to fight through in the 97 car. will clear him down the back straightaway. A lot more aggressive this time than what we saw in the initial green flag.
Yeah, I think drivers know there's no guarantee we'll see another yellow flag, so there's no more give and take. Now it's take and take. Go right away. We have Michael Conti with the 8, 12.5 underneath him. This is going to be very difficult into turn 1. Too wide into turn 1 and across the straightaway is very tight. They work it out, single file with those two, but there's still action right here as the 46 squeezes in line.
Just tucking in line behind that 4 car. As you can see behind them, stuck at a line on the inside, is the number 88 machine of Brad Davies. He fights side by side with Casey Kerwin. But your race leaders, the first to single file out, and they want to run away from all of that chaos middle of the racetrack. You can take a look at Brad Davies. He has gotten himself in line. Tucking line behind the Nutrient Ag Solutions number 1 machine of Ashton Crowder, who sits in front of him for position number 12. So they do single file things out, but drivers much more inclined in the second half of this race to fight for those positions as opposed to just kind of letting somebody go if they got that inside position on you into the corner. We saw a lot of that earlier on in this race. Championship drivers running 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, and 9 inside of the top 10 in this race. And let's take a second look off of the restart. Right-hand side of your screen, look at the number 21 machine. Off it into 3, a huge stack up with Wilson up the road. And Garrett Lowe got into the fence, and then the 44 machine of Anthony Burrows was trapped down low in turn number 3. He loses a ton of spots on the run down the front straightaway. We knew stacking up could be a concern. Clearly, that second half of the field was not as organized as the race leaders who we were watching.
Yeah, and that 17, that was hard contact into the outside wall. We'll have to just see if he's able to continue with that damage. Seems like he's settled back in so far here.
And once again, Mitchell DeYoung has checked out from the battle for second on back, just like he did on the initial drop of the green flag. He is pulled early to a 1.4 second advantage over Keegan Leahy, Logan Clamp, and Michael Conti in the battle for P2, Tim.
And when we go back green flag racing with under 90 laps to go, boys, it gives us an opportunity to look at strategy. A lot of these teams are looking at splitting this run in half, going to about 45 laps or so, but there is some talk of some of these teams going long on a long stint to go about 60 laps or so. Put some tape on these race cars to get to the end if this thing does stay green. So we might see from this point on, if we go green to the end, some differing strategies here on pit road.
I mean, it's wide open, Steve. You touched on that, right? You could pit in the middle, make your runs equidistant, but you also said if somebody who's willing to push the issue, you could pit a little bit later, go for a splash, eliminate the left side tires. I mean, if this goes green, it is a huge window of opportunity for drivers to try something different.
Yeah, if it goes green the whole way, splitting in the half mathematically is definitely the best way to do it. But the advantage of running long, I don't think as much the 2 tires or a splash of gas here at Darlington. I think you're hoping for a caution. I think you want to run long, get a caution. If the other guys have 10 or 12 laps in their tires, they're going to come to pit road as well. As we see Ashton Crowder on the 1 continuing to pester Bobby Zielinski from just ahead of him in the 83. The 1 making nice moves. There you go. There's a big dive to the bottom into turn 1. The 83 will defend, but with traffic in front of the 83, he's just can't carry enough speed on corner exit. That's so narrow. I just didn't figure that would work, and around goes Crowder in the 1.
Thought he was going to be able to save it, but it loops a second time. Caution again at lap number 107, and we will slow things down once more. And it's important to note, we talk about these non-playoff drivers, right? Trying to give as much respect as they can to the playoff cars, but they're in a points battle of their own. This series has relegation. If you're not familiar with that concept, of course, we're talking a lot about the 10 drivers fighting for a championship, but all those other 30 cars, they're trying to stay top 20 in the points. If you finish top 20 in the points at the end of the year, you are locked into this series for 2022. If you do not get top 20, you will drop down to the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender iRacing Series and have to requalify. But let's watch how all of this developed. It was Crowder on the inside of Zielinski. We talked about the aggressive drive, and as they came off the turn right there, I mean, it looked like Zielinski was all the way up on the fence, and it was Crowder who got a little bit sideways. But as I say that, Bobby Zielinski actually apologizing over the radio. This should be a good perspective.
Yeah, let's try to see what Zielinski does. Oh, there was definitely some movement out of the 83 car, kind of a little wiggle off the wall, but I will say that's been consistent with most guys we've seen. I think this is just a racing incident. You know, we'll go off the radio. If Zielinski's apologizing on the radio, then he feels that he moved down too much. You can see the wiggle. No doubt the 83 wiggles, and that's the contact to the one. You know, these drivers understand what is allowable and what's too much movement. So if Zielinski is apologizing, he must have felt like he moved too much. Now the question is, what pit crews will be the most efficient on and off pit road? I assume it's going to be 4 tires for everyone.
Well, you were just saying, hypothetically, if later in this race cars were out there for 11, 12 laps, they would want tires. They were on this set for 12 laps, and they all want to come down pit road. No change in the race lead. Everybody going to go for 4 tires towards the front of the field, and it is DeYoung, Leahy, Clampett, Conti, and Mullis out in that order. All playoff cars in the top 5. Ray Alfalla, however, going with a 2-tire decision in the 51 car, right side tires only. He'll leapfrog from 17th up to position number 10. One point that I was going to make right before that last restart, though, we were talking hypotheticals on strategy, Steve, is these guys could do anything because they had the tire sets, right? We talked about that earlier tonight in a Race News Race Analysis. Now that we've done 3 pit stops, those numbers starting to dwindle. We'll take an opportunity to step aside. Mitchell DeYoung is in control at Darlington. You're watching the playoff opener on the iRacing Esports Network.
We've learned to savor the moments that were always there. And they never tasted this good.
You're invited to join 16 daredevils on a crisscrossing journey across the world of speed. We're underway. Setting it ablaze with full throttle insanity.
Got trouble on the front straightaway. Oh, get moved, bud.
Where will it end? Who will rip up Phoenix with donuts of joy?
Man, that was wild.
Time will tell. But for now, ride with me. The NASCAR playoffs begin in Darlington, Sunday on NBCSN.
It doesn't matter where you're from, who you grew up rooting for, what you grew up watching, your home track, your favorite car, the series you've always wanted to race in. When you're ready to know what it's like, we're here, bringing you as close to the action as it gets with the ultimate sim racing experience. With a community of hundreds of thousands just like you. This is iRacing, and here, every day is race day.
Back live from Darlington, green flag is back in the air with 72 laps to go. All of your leaders, with the exception of Ray Alfalla, just came down for 4. Conti up in the mix. It's Clampett who gets sideways. The 97 hangs on another twitch off of turn 2.
Intensity's turned up, but one interesting note, we saw Bob Bryant come down pit road and top off with 1 to go. 72 laps to go, we think, is outside their fuel window, but we did see Kane Cook go 69 laps to start this race, so we'll just have to watch as that strategy unfolds, as the racing is extremely tight inside the top 5 or 10 right here. We see the 10 slide up the racetrack. Man, it is so tight to get in that position as we see Zielinski once again side by side with Brad Davies in the 88.
You just talked with Bob Bryant, and he said that they had to spend some time in the box getting repairs done. They were the lowest of the playoff cars, and when they came down to top off, they said over the radio, we have nothing to lose. So clearly, Bob Bryant is swinging for the fences here at Darlington, trying to make something happen. You're watching right now Brad Davies work on the bottom of Casey Kerwin, but Kerwin winning that exchange. And then even further on down the line, Ryan Doucette's number 79 car going to get passed up by a duo of Kane Cook and his fistful of Bourbon Ford. And on the outside, it is the Cheerios entry of Derek Justice. Let's take a second look, though, at what happened with these drivers. You can see Garrett Maines is in the mix there, Anthony Burrows, and look out. They used every inch of that front straightaway to not wreck those race cars despite their best efforts.
Yeah, there's 5 lanes there. I'm not sure you ever want to use lanes 3, 4, or 5, but they needed them all to stay out of the inside wall.
And on the restart, same song and dance. You don't see Mitchell DeYoung because he's about a second and a half up the road from where the battle always seems to be, which is position number 2 on back. Now, I think Keegan Leahy would really like this thing to run itself out green. DeYoung has been the better of those 2 cars on the short run, but remember that one long green flag run to start this race. DeYoung was comfortable, 1.7 seconds ahead for much of it, but then Keegan Leahy closed it down into the ballpark of about 0.6 of a second onto pit road and actually leapfrogged his teammate through the pit cycle. Now, DeYoung, being the better short run car, passed him after that pit cycle, but I think Keegan Leahy's best case scenario here, if he wants to be the first driver to lock into the championship 4 instead of his teammate, is for this race to run itself green. Championship cars running 1, 2, 3, and 4, Steve.
Yeah, very impressive. I mean, that's why the 4s are in there. I'm really impressed with Mitchell DeYoung. We have seen pole positions out of this driver before, but we have really yet to see the racecraft on the ovals. Now, when he sits on pole at road courses, drives off the front of the field, we've become accustomed to that. At the ovals, while he has won some ovals this year, you know, it wasn't this type of performance, but today he's been flawless, keeping that track position other than that small stint after the pit stop that you mentioned. You know, his teammate passed him, and he was able to run his teammate right back down. So the question now is, does Keegan try to split this run up in the middle, run about 35 laps, or does that fall into Mitchell DeYoung's hands? You know, because then you have new tires on the most, and he seems to be the short run car.
And there's their teammates, so you wonder how much communicating they're doing with each other, or if they're kind of gone radio silent. Coverage of tonight's race is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. By Asus, the official gaming hardware partner of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And by Logitech G and the Logitech G923, the official wheel and pedal of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. This is the perspective on board with Jake Matheson. Let's ride around Darlington with our playseat onboard camera. Well, there's the onboard look with Jacob Matheson, and talking about the playseat onboard camera, you can see it looks like he's in a cockpit with his playseat seat at his home rig at home. And, you know, just watching the onboard at the very start of this show, Steve, you talked about some of the pinpoints, or the pain points, if you will, on this track. And every time we go through turn 2, I just have to think about how tricky it is, right? You can't just ride the bottom. You can't just ride the top. You kind of have to diamond it to the bottom and then swing wide so late. Not a surprise that that's been one of the troublesome corners. And speaking of trouble, Matheson got a little bit loose that time. We'll lose a spot there to Blade Witt.
Yeah, I mean, you actually, if you can imagine it, we'll ride on board right here with Matheson as we go down into turn 1. 1 and 2 are almost connected from a straightaway you can't see. So he's going to climb the banking in turn 1, get up there about a half a car width off the wall right here. Now you pick up the gas and you drive across this little arc, and that adds almost a straightaway. Then you get back out of the gas to finish that corner. So it's almost like turn 1, straightaway, turn 2.
One of the few places where turns 1 and 2 are actually different corners as opposed to just one big sweeping turn.
There's nothing symmetrical at this place. That's why it's so much fun as a crew chief. Not only the strategy, but there's content in the racetrack. What I mean by that is there's some normalized roughness. The pavement's not smooth. There's bumps, there's ripples, there's pavement seams. There are different corners that look very different. They load the car very different, so you can set your car up to suit one in the racetrack versus the other. It's just, it's a crew chief's dream if it's working right, and it's a nightmare if nothing works right. I've had it both ways.
We're watching that 75 machine of Matt Busa right now. There's a good onboard perspective of the driver riding in 13th position. And you talk about the history of Darlington, right? The oldest speedway on the NASCAR circuit, where you're kind of big open and wide open in the center of 1 and 2. But, I mean, this track has been perplexing drivers and mechanics alike since it opened back in 1950 for the running of the inaugural NASCAR Southern 500. Let's listen. Sounds like Busa is clutching, trying to save some fuel.
You hear no engine decel when he gets in the corner. He's not alone. I've been studying up and listening to some of these guys. Busa in 13th is clutching, but that's because Alfala in 12th, just ahead of him. Also, he's been clutching. Michael Guest in 16th has been on the clutch as well. And we're hearing Bob Bryant, who came and topped off, is good on fuel at this point with 57 to go. And I think this is the reaction of the rest of the field. I think they know that they're beat if it runs green, so they have to find a way to save some fuel. So Alfala in 12th, I think, is the highest car that has really committed to using the clutch and saving some gas.
Picking up the battle for 15th, it is a razor-thin margin. Bob Bryant, by topping off on fuel, Steve, only gave himself 2 extra laps of fuel compared to everybody else. You would think over a full fuel run that it's at least a plausible thing to do to save somewhere in that ballpark. We'll see, again, when it comes to the race leaders, if they do need to save, when do they do it? How aggressively do they do it? Trying to walk the tightrope between saving the fuel they need and also fighting the cars around them and not dropping way off. Bob Bryant is not the only car who topped off on fuel. Ashton Crowder did as well. Stephen Wilson, Taylor Hurst, and Blade Witt are in the middle. They had come down pit road a lap before Bryant did, but a lap after a majority of the field did. So there's a lot of cars towards the rear that are a little bit more to the good on fuel than a vast majority of the field. Rumor is Dylan Duvall doing the same thing. The driver at Halifax, Nova Scotia, picks up the throttle that time through, and we'll listen in as he races down the back straightaway, and let's see what happens in turn 3. Sounded like there, Steve, he was out of the gas and on the clutch significantly longer than what we heard on that previous onboard camera.
Yeah, I was listening to this end of the racetrack as well. Darlington is a track that you actually use a little brake, especially in turns 3. So if you can time it right, when you use the clutch, don't use the brake. Let's listen in.
When we talk all of this strategy with these drivers just being outside of that fuel window, Steve, you've been in the position to make these calls. It looks like, I don't know if it was Bob Bryant who forced the issue, right? Or if all these drivers were going to have to do this anyways, but it looks like that everybody has bought into the decision that I'm not going to push 110%. We are all going to want to save to make it to the end. It's not like it's 5 or 10 cars doing it. Bob Bryant may have started it in some aspect, but it looks like everybody trying to clutch and save. You think that's the right call?
Yeah, absolutely. Fuel savings is an area of racing that the fans don't love at times, but it's an area you have to attack. The toughest position is if you're in the top 5 or 6, because that field is so close. We have Mr. DeYoung with a 1.4 second lead over Keegan Leahy, Clampett 1.7 back, Ottinger 2 seconds, Conti 2.8, Mullis 3.0. So, as we ride on board with Mullis right here, right on the rear bumper of Conti, I just don't know if these guys can give up that much time with 51 laps to go. I think they have to run hard and just assume or hope there's another caution that will allow them to come in and put tires and fuel on, because that'll square up the whole field.
You're looking at two of the very best in this series, battling for 5th and 6th position. Michael Conti, the 2014 series champion, running ahead of the 2019 series champion, Zach Novak. And talking about some of the veterans, that is exactly what you're looking at in this battle right here with Ray Alfalla and company. We talked about it just a couple of weeks ago. Some of the drivers who have been in this series that have more starts than anybody else on the grid. You got a guy like Ray Alfalla who has 203 career starts coming into this race, Steve. Brad Davies has 193 starts. These drivers have started more races than anybody else. And if you add their starts together, that number might be close to the rest of the field combined. These drivers have been doing this and had a lot of success for a long time.
A lot of success, and they've really pioneered some of it, not only the racing, but how you race one another. You know, I've raced with Brad Davies before, and you know, race is very clean, very competitive, but I think they've kind of set the bar, and I think this series owes a lot to these veterans. I think they've gone out there and showed some of these younger drivers who are super talented kind of what can be accomplished in the esport world, and I think that's been great for all of us, and they prove that. I mean, look at this right here. Two absolute veterans nose to tail. So much fun to watch.
Davies 6th on the all-time wins list as well in this series. Ray, of course, the 4-time series champion. Watching the battle for the number 2 position. We've mentioned that DeYoung was able to pull away, and Logan Clampett is trying to do what he hasn't been able to do tonight, and that is break into the top 2 positions. Ottinger, a little bit of a stripe that time in 3 and 4. The contact's not bad. Here comes Clampett to the inside of Keegan Leahy, side by side for position number 2. And Leahy shakes him off. That outside, really the better place to be when you get to that turn number 2.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the problem you have with this racetrack is we just talked about the variety from one end to the other. Well, that also means you have to understand where your car has an advantage or where you have to be defensive. As you see right here, Clampett getting a great run on the bottom. I think this is going to work, and he's going to have a little help, a big shove. I think Leahy's going to have to give the position up, but is it 1 or 2 spots? I looked out to the left. There it is. I thought there might be another car that comes into sight, and sure enough, Nick Ottinger follows through. That's a great work by Nick Ottinger, pushing Logan Clampett, and then while the position was open, taking the position, and now Leahy is under attack from Conti as well, and Mullis right behind him.
When we talk about teammates working together, and of course, Logan Clampett carrying the flag for William Byron Esports in this championship, no surprise that his teammate was very aggressive to follow him through and put another position and therefore another critical point between him and a driver behind. However, Nick Ottinger over the radio says that he is coming down pit road. As we take a live look in at your championship standings, Ottinger is pitting after having just been in 32 laps ago. Is it an issue for Ottinger, or does this spell doom for the drivers up front, Steve? He's not on his own. Novak is in, Guest is in, Vincent is down pit road. Could these cars up front not be able to save the fuel they need to go to the end? And now Michael Conti says that he will be pitting for position number 4.
I like this call. If you don't have the fuel, get tires and get them on there now. Put great pace up there, great lap times. We're the ones saving gas. Can they even hold you off for 43 laps? Or can you make up the time on the racetrack? I think this is a great idea of continuing to play chess, right? It's not just, you can't throw your hands up and say, man, we're beat, we're on the wrong strategy. You have to attack it, and you have to come up with a new plan. That's exactly what these drivers have done.
So now we wait to see, can anybody who didn't top off make it to the end? Let's watch a replay with Mitchell DeYoung here, your race leader who has come to pit road. We talked about the challenge he had first time, Steve, and look at this. Another huge slide almost into the barrels on the pit road entry. His pit road entry on the first green flag cycle of this race cost him the race lead. He got passed by his teammate Keegan Leahy, and you have to wonder if that similar mistake there is going to cost him again.
Yeah, we're going to have to let it cycle out and see where they land, but I totally agree, as now we see the 97 couldn't tell if he was coming to pit road or not. Looks like nope, he's continuing on the racetrack. Logan Clampett is going to continue out. So I don't know if he thinks he can make it on fuel or if he just wants to run a little bit longer into the session, as now we see the 18 on pit road.
Yep, Femi Olad's onto the pit lane just behind Jimmy Mullis, who's getting out. Vicente Salas and Chris Shearburn are completing their trips down to the pit lane, and we're about a split right now. Half the cars have pitted, half the cars have not. Now, we talk all about the driver's saving. Right now, there is very definitively two strategies. There's the Bob Bryant and the couple of other cars towards the back, Taylor Hurst, Steven Wilson, who pitted about 2 laps later than these guys did by topping off maybe more plausible to make it to the end of this race. First off, it's not guaranteed they could make it, Steve. When it happened, we were talking, 72 laps to the end of the race, and he had the longest run we had seen tonight is 69. So that strategy may have been made banking on a yellow anyway. So we don't even know if a guy like a Bob Bryant can make it to the end of this race as we see Nick Ottinger work on fresh tires. But I guarantee you somebody's going to run or dry trying to win this race coming to now 38 laps to go.
Well, the bigger question is can you just keep the pace? I mean, as we're on board with Nick Ottinger, I mean, look at the speed he carries versus the older tires on the racetrack. So it's really two concerns for those guys on a fuel strategy. Can you save enough fuel? Can you manage the tires? Will they last, or will you burn the tires off the race car, or will you not have enough pace? I mean, look at this right here. The closing rate, breathtaking. I mean, so much faster on fresh tires.
See what it is at the start-finish line. The lap for Nick Ottinger is a 29.103. The cars that he's passing are running mid to low 31, 32 second range laps. So he is, 2 seconds plus faster than the drivers on the old tires. And that's right, to your point, even if some drivers can go to the end, well, they have to slow down too much to lose race pace, and guys like Ottinger would catch them anyways. Logan Clampett will pit from the race lead, but it is important to note that Nick Ottinger is the lead car of those who have come down pit road and are certain to be good to the end. Ottinger riding in 22nd position at the moment, ahead of Mitchell DeYoung, who is the lead playoff car on that cycle. But Clampett's down pit road, Alfala's down pit road. Keegan Leahy now will pit from the race lead in the number 32 machine. There is his entry onto the pit lane for service. Ryan Luza, for the moment, cycles through to the race lead. We are still waiting on 4 playoff cars, now 3 playoff cars to pit. Zelensky, Busa, and Bryant have yet to pit. Of course, Bryant, the one who we know is trying to stretch to the end.
Well, I actually think Busa is as well. I think he's clutching because he feels he can make it. The concern I have with Leahy and these guys, why the math says to pit on this lap, this is halfway in the middle of this green flag run, they should have the best tires for the most amount of time. They have given up a lot of time to people like Logan Clampett that have pitted early. So they'll have a little fresher tires. Maybe they can run them down.
There's Jimmy Mullis making a race leader look like he's standing still. All of these cars are unlapping themselves. Of course, lap times here at Darlington in the 30-second range. And when you combine time on pit road plus pit service time, you're looking at about 50 seconds. So drivers who pit will lose their lead lap status. Talking about a guy like Luza staying out, Steve, that may be an influence in why these guys don't want to pit early, because if you come down for the undercut, you're going to get that tire advantage, but you are susceptible to being caught out if there's a yellow flag.
And the big question really to me is, can someone like Matt Busa stretch his fuel? I mean, when you look at the rundown, right, Luza leads Zelensky, Matt Busa 1, 2, and 3. Has Busa committed to the strategy early enough? And I'm still concerned, can he hold them off? Last lap, 31.3. Nick Ottinger last lap, 29.3. That's 2 seconds faster. 2 seconds. That is a tremendous amount of speed.
Ryan Luza just got put into the fence about a lap ago when he was getting lapped by Vicente Salas. We talk about drivers not wanting to get caught up by a yellow. Well, this is what can happen with closing rate. Watch this. Salas to the bottom, but he just kind of runs the 4 car out of room. I mean, it's pretty obvious, Steve, that all Vicente's trying to do there is get a better arc into the corner, but he was nowhere near clear and just about took Luza out of this race. And understandably, Lou's not happy with how that went down over the radio, as now Bobby Zalenski closes in on him. This is a battle for position between these two cars who have not pitted.
Bobby Zalenski, though, looked like he had a little pace better than Luza after that damage. We'll see if he can find his way past the driver of the 4 while saving gas. Let's listen in to Zalenski and see if he's using the clutch still.
Not that time in 1, but let's listen to see if he does it again in 3. Look at those cars on the bottom as well. I mean, he's got to get out of the way, and he'll go to the inside of Luza for the race lead as he throws it off into the corner. I do think he was clutching a little bit, but because he had to pass the 4 there, maybe not this lap specifically, but new race leader, Bobby Zalenski at lap 154.
As Zalenski takes the lead, runs a 31.0. Continuing tracking our cars off pit road, Nick Ottinger, 29.5. Nick Ottinger now, I believe, has unlapped himself. Am I seeing that time in the scoring correctly?
It looks like he has been able to drive himself through, and he has been able to unlap himself in that battle. Let's take a second look, talking about all of the chaos through this pit cycle. Let's see what happened to the other of those Latardi Sports entry. This is on board of a Shearburn, trying to get through and look up the road. How about 1, 2, and 3 wide into turn number 3? And the only driver with sense there was that 38 was Casey Kerwin, who let those cars go. I mean, 2 wide is tricky enough. If he had kept his nose in there on the outside, I think that would have ended poorly.
Yeah, I think that would have been a big issue. So we see Zalenski leads. Really, at this point, he has to just manage his lead in front of Ryan Luza, which is about a half a second currently. But I think he's really tracking the fresh tire car of Nick Ottinger back in 14th. I think now 13th. Ottinger is doing a pretty nice job. Mitchell DeYoung is only about a second and a half behind Nick Ottinger. I think that's the battle that is as important as leading the race currently.
So we continue to monitor who is leading the actual race, who is leading of the cars who have pitted. That now belongs still to Nick Ottinger, ahead of Mitchell DeYoung, but that could be a fight at its own right here. They are there as they slice around the 77 of Bob Bryant. They are now passing cars who have not pitted. So even if Bob Bryant, Taylor Hurst, Steven Wilson can go to the end of this race, doesn't matter. The guys who pitted have passed them. So that's where that pace that you talked about comes into a factor. So it's Zalenski and Luza for the race lead. And right here, it is Ottinger and DeYoung for what may become the race lead. They are 12 seconds off of the race leader. And with 25 laps to go, Steve, they need to average about a half a second per lap better to catch the leaders. Right now, they're looking at about a full second per lap. So even if Zalenski and company can make it to the end, if these two drivers can keep this pace up, it may not matter.
Well, but the big advantage for Zalenski, even if it doesn't work out, you know, he wasn't leading. It's not like he gave up track position. He was running just outside the top 5 most of the night, somewhere between 5th and 10th. And if we get a yellow anywhere in the next 15 laps, he should still be the leader of the race. I don't think these guys could catch him in 15 laps. So then everybody will come get tires, and Bobby Zalenski instantly will have track position. I like this strategy.
And we talk about how quickly things can change. Once upon a time, 6 or 7 of the cars in the top 10 were our playoff drivers. At this very moment in time, only 2 of the top 12 are playoff cars. That's because a majority of them are running in the midfield, 13th through 17th, 24th and 25th, and then 29th a little bit further on down the running order. So those are all important things to note as we get later and later, as full darkness has enclosed the virtual Darlington Raceway. Running under the lights, and into the fence again goes race leader Bobby Zalenski. Second time in his many laps. He gets a bit of the outside wall there. He is really working that 83 car hard.
Yeah, you just see he gets too high off the corner and simply makes contact. Let's take a look on the right side. Oh, no, up the track. That slide and a little bit of contact. That shouldn't have hurt him too much. I was looking at the lap times to see how much time it cost him. The advantage Zalenski has is he now can run around 31 second laps, where Mitchell DeYoung, and Nick Ottinger are like 30-20s. So, 7/8 tenths of a lap, 7 seconds back. I think there's no doubt DeYoung and Ottinger will catch him. It's going to be hopefully with about 10 or 12 laps to go. We'll just have to see how far Zielinski falls or if he's fortunate enough to catch a yellow.
And do not be mistaken, just because, as you see the 15 car at Kane Cook pull up right in front of Ottinger, just because Ottinger and DeYoung are both Logitech G-sponsored cars, don't be mistaken. Those are not teammates. Nick Ottinger driving for William Byron Esports is not a playoff car. Mitchell DeYoung driving for 2311 Racing is. We talked about how we know that there will be at minimum 1 points position available in the championship 4, because we could see 3 different playoff winners in this round. If Ottinger could get the win here tonight, that would be big for the title, Steve, because that would guarantee at least 2 points positions into the championship 4. Mitchell DeYoung wants to make sure that doesn't happen, but I'm very impressed with how Nick Ottinger has kind of skated under the radar so far tonight and has put himself in great position.
Well, Nick Ottinger's resume proves we shouldn't be surprised at his pace. But the counter to that is if a playoff driver can win tonight, they're through, and they can start focusing on that final race of the year. I think that would be a huge advantage for any driver that can go ahead and put himself into the championship final.
And now it's a waiting game. Watching the intervals, less than 7 seconds off of the race lead is Nick Ottinger. Next car up the road is Alan Bowes, the number 67 car that he's going to have to deal with. And there's a lot of pressure here for Nick, right? He's the better car than these guys. He's not really going to have a logistical issue passing them, but he needs to make sure he passes them with a little bit of pep in his step, right? Can't set it up and be too perfect, because if you lift, try to set it up for the next corner, by the time you do that, Mitchell DeYoung's going to be on top of you. So the 25 does need to be a little bit more careful here. You can see, took him an extra corner there to get by the 67. All of a sudden, Mitchell DeYoung is back on the bumper in a battle for what right now is P7, but is looking like it'll shake out to be the battle for the race win. 17 laps to go from Darlington.
Ryan Luza, Casey Kerwin right there on screen, second and third. Behind them, Blake Reynolds, Matt Busa, Dylan Duval, then Nick Ottinger. And I really believe that Duval, Busa, Reynolds, Kerwin, Luza, they're Bobby Zielinski's best chance right now. He needs these guys to slow the leaders down. We know they have more pace by themselves. The question is, and you pointed it out, how much time will it take for them to work through traffic as we take a look at Casey Kerwin there on the right-hand side, those lime green gloves working the steering wheel.
He's got, I think, the Pro Cheetah with him on the right-hand side. Sponsor of XSET. You see Ghost and HyperX and all of the great partners they have on those Ford Mustangs. Oh, look out, 3 wide. Mitchell DeYoung underneath the 25 of Nick Ottinger. He got him. Used that slower car as a pick. And Mitchell DeYoung will take what may be the race win away from Nick Ottinger with that pass.
A huge move out of the driver from 2311. Mitchell DeYoung, the pole sitter today, dominates the first half of the race due to strategy, has been pushed back into traffic using those new tires. Let's take a look at exactly how he did it. He had been dogging Nick Ottinger lap after lap. You mentioned the slower car on board with Mitchell right here. Oh, man, just slow for Nick Ottinger. Couldn't get back to the gas. Mitchell times it perfectly, and a great 3-wide move into turn 1.
We talked about how you want that high line in turn 2 for that very late actual corner through 2 after that kind of mini straightaway as you ride the fence into between 1 and 2. And there was just no space on the bottom for Nick Ottinger to do anything there with Dylan Duval. That was a battle for position. Duval held his ground, and it was just that unfortunate timing. It's exactly what I was talking about just laps ago. The Nick Ottinger needed to be swift in those passes, and the one opportunity, and he fumbles just a little bit. Mitchell DeYoung was there to capitalize. Now the pressure is on DeYoung. He'll go to the inside of Busa, clear him for position number 5. It's a role reversal Now DeYoung needs to make sure that he doesn't stutter making these moves, or Nick Ottinger, 5 car lengths behind him, will try to pay back that favor. 12 laps to go for Darlington. DeYoung is up to P5, looking for some more.
As we rode on board with Busa, we heard him continue to clutch it. So he's all into fuel strategy. He feels that's his best chance. You have to ask yourself, is Zelensky just hoping for a yellow, or does he feel that he can make it on fuel? I don't believe he'll have enough speed to hold these guys off, even if he can make it on fuel, as that move by Mitchell DeYoung puts him only 2.2 seconds behind the race leader.
He needs to continue to make these moves. There was a bit of hesitation, but they both got to Reynolds, but they are through. And now there is a significant gap. It's about 2 seconds until they get to the next car. They'll probably need 2, maybe 3 laps to make that time up. And then it'll be the X-Set duo. You are looking off of the back of third-place runner Casey Kerwin. There are no lapped cars between Kerwin and DeYoung. So those next 2 cars in line, Mitchell DeYoung 4th, and then Nick Ottinger riding in position number 5. Casey Kerwin has to know at this point that he does not have the speed to hold those faster cars up. They're about 0.8 of a second faster every single lap. All he can do is hold his line, and the onus will be again on DeYoung to execute the pass in a timely manner. This time by 9 laps to go. Any hold up here could severely impact DeYoung's hopes of chasing down Bobby Zelensky leading this race. He needs to get through cleanly.
He has to get through cleanly, but he can't panic. You still have to half set up the pass, because if you just catch him at the wrong time and you have to lift, you'll give up way more pace. Bobby Zelensky now is being attacked by the 4 of Luza. I don't know if Zelensky's trying to save more fuel, if the handlings go away, but the 4 of Luza is only 3 car lengths back with 9 to go.
And he looks underneath the number 38 machine, side by side for third. Easy does it for Mitchell DeYoung as Casey Kerwin sticks the hand out the virtual window net and lets him go. Notably, Nick Ottinger has fallen off of Mitchell DeYoung. It appears this is the 23's race to win at this point. Now he closes in on a 2-way battle for the lead. First is Ryan Luza. Second is Bobby Zelensky. Mitchell DeYoung will have 7 laps to get around them.
And at this point, I think he sees them. He can be patient. It's really more about the pressure behind him. Nick Ottinger, I think, should be his bigger concern. I think Mitchell DeYoung has, without a doubt, enough pace to pass the 2 in front of him. Take your time, set him up. Don't make a mistake at this point.
Could be tricky if Ryan Luza is close enough to Zelensky to fight with the 83 machine. There might not be room in between them. Here goes DeYoung on the inside, but Ryan Luza will use the outside and fight him off. 6 laps to go now, and you can see behind them, Ottinger does make the pass on Casey Kerwin, and there's a caution flag with less than 7 laps to go. Bobby Zelensky, Mitchell DeYoung don't know how to feel, and this race will be settled in overtime.
Well, life support for Bobby Zelensky. We weren't sure if he could make it on fuel. He definitely did a nice job holding off Mitchell DeYoung. I believe everybody's going to need brand new tires now. I don't think anyone can stay out on these old tires 2 seconds off the pace.
And it sounds like that Mitchell may have been a little bit short given the circumstances. So a lot of these drivers only put enough fuel in the car to get to the scheduled distance. So they're pitting because they need fuel. They are also pitting because obviously they want tires. For Zelensky and Luza, they've been out there for 70 laps. Mitchell DeYoung's been out there for 38. Let's see what caused the caution, and then we'll follow the pit stops. It was Brad Davies and Garrett Maines fighting for position. And as they race down, I believe, the back straightaway, just a late pullout for Davies, avoidable contact. Garrett Maines is involved. The 16 of John Gorlinski gets damaged. And you hate to see that that's the reason why that battle for the race lead that we were following will not come to fruition on the strategy. Instead, all of your race leaders are on pit road right now for the final stop of the night. Bobby Zelensky first into the box. No doubt he's going to go for the 4 tires. Right sides are up first. sits in the box. They're going to go over to the left side. 4 tires on the 83. Who will win the race off of pit road? He pulls out, and it looks like that Bobby Zalenski, watch him, he's way down there in the silver and red car to the line, maintaining the top spot. And how about Ryan Luza sneaking through as well? He will be the second car off of pit road. But Steve, Bobby Zalenski is not your leader. Malik Ray has not pitted, and on a 71-lap stint is currently leading this race.
Well, actually, I think that's a huge advantage for Bobby Zalenski. Now Malik Ray is going to hold up one lane. That should leave Bobby Zalenski on new tires, easily the leader into turn 1. I don't think Malik Ray has any opportunity to hold these guys with new tires off. So I think that's a huge advantage for Zalenski. Now he won't have brand new tires lined up next to him. It'll be old tires. He should easily be able to accelerate and beat Malik Ray through 1 and 2.
And it looks like, assuming that Malik Ray is going to stay out and not pit before the restart, that he would be on the inside of the front row. Zalenski would go to the outside. It would be non-playoff competitor Ryan Luza on the bottom of row number 2 and 3rd behind Malik Ray. And Bobby Zalenski's championship foe fighting for a golden ticket to that Texas finale, Mitchell DeYoung, on the outside of row number 2 and 4th, lined up directly behind his number 83 Chevrolet. So just when we thought we had a great battle in the works, maybe, as you said, Steve, a lifeline for Bobby Zalenski here, because now he doesn't have to hope that that pass for second is difficult, right? Mitchell DeYoung could have had his way with Bobby Zalenski there, could have been very aggressive, pushed him out of the way if Bobby held him up. I mean, it really wasn't a fair fight, right? 83 was trying to protect that track position. Right now, they've got just as good a chance as anybody else as we'll transition into green-white checkered attempt number 1.
Yeah, Mitchell DeYoung has had the best short-run car here tonight. There's zero doubt, zero question about that. But this is not Michigan. This is not Charlotte. There are not 3 or 4 lanes in every corner. 1 and 2, very single lane. 3 and 4, a little more width, a little bit harder to defend there. But I think at this point, if you're Bobby Zalenski, it's really all about your corners. I'm not sure that Mitchell has the speed to outright drive by you in 2 laps. Can he get inside you? Yes, but you're going to have to defend. All of that give and take we talked about for basically the first 180 laps of this race, that's out the window. Door to door into turn 1, that's going to be a 2-wide battle. It'll shock me if there's not some sort of contact with the leaders. It's just such a narrow racetrack.
Mitchell DeYoung is the only repeat winner on the season, but they both came on the road courses at Circuit of the Americas and at Road America. Can he get his first oval win? Punch his ticket to the championship. Could Bobby Zalenski steal it? Or could a non-playoff driver like Ryan Luza jump into the mix and steal the show? The pace car will dive down at the safety of the pit lane this time through. Remember, Malik Ray is a damaged number 11 Ford on 73-lap old tires. He gets to put the throttle down first, but it's going to die very quickly. 2 laps to go, and Zalenski takes the lead.
You see Malik Ray really just gets out of the way. He knows he doesn't have the pace. Now can Bobby Zalenski find the pace to hold off the best car of the night, the 23 of Mitchell DeYoung. The 83 rockets off turn 2, 2 car lengths heading into turn 3.
They race off 1 and 2 for the top position. Mitchell DeYoung in second spot. He is within 1 car length. They need to get to the white flag. They will not. Caution flag behind them. Reset and try again. That close for Zalenski to take the white flag. The yellow comes out first. The wreck is behind in the field, and we will have to do it again. And this time, Steve, Zalenski DeYoung going to be side by side on the front row.
Yeah, much different restart this time. It's going to have a completely different look.
A lot of smoke down the back straightaway here, the Boeing Straight on the back stretch. We'll wait to see a look at what happened. Sounds like maybe Brad Davies was involved. Let's watch. We're kind of centered around the number 9 machine of Novak up on the outside, and it was the 67 who got loose up in front of the 32, and it just stacked everybody up off of turn number 2. And they were wrecking for a long time. Didn't actually wreck those two, but at this point we're still green. And then eventually the wrecking concludes halfway down the back straightaway, and it all started right there. Just a little bit of a bobble at that 67 car of Alan Bowes. And when there's no gaps between cars, you're going to have guys check it up to avoid the wreck. You're going to have guys going low to try to, kind of sneak around it. And most of the cars got through it just with some bruises and whatnot. But this was all back in traffic, and this is why we are back under the caution flag.
Well, and to your point, though, we talk a lot about the race win because that is the ultimate golden ticket. But Keegan Leahy, there's the 15 finally spinning out. There's the yellow. But Keegan Leahy, pinballed up against that outside wall a few times. That is going to be costly in the points situation when we look at the playoff picture.
Here's the onboard perspective with Cook. One thing you'll notice as well is there was a bit of drama on the front row with Bobby Zelensky. Bobby Zelensky, of course, was not the control car. That was Malik Ray. We very clearly, Steve, saw Malik Ray throttle off of the corner first, but Bobby Zelensky quickly passed him. Conventional rules is that the race leader cannot be beat to the start-finish line. Zelensky clearly beat Malik Ray to the start-finish line. He was initially assessed just an automatic black flag, automatically, because the sim knew, hey, second-place car beat him to the line. It was very clear, though, that Malik Ray had already started the race in turn number 4, so that was cleared by race control. But that was kind of a drastic conversation on the radio between Bobby Zelensky and race control while he was fighting with DeYoung for the race lead. You won't have to deal with that this time.
Yeah, very simply, the leader has a chance to start the race, but Malik Ray, with those 73-lap old tires, there was no defense, right? There was nothing he was going to do to hold his position, and for that reason, the penalty was overturned. I completely understand it. I'm still scratching my head a little bit by Malik Ray's plan to stay out. He just didn't have any pace in that car, and in the end, he's back to where he would have been, I think, if he would have just pitted.
Yeah, if we didn't have overtime or one attempt, right, then it makes sense. You hope to catch a quick yellow, but, he knew that he didn't have the pace. He pulled way out of the way, so credit to him, right? He didn't keep it in the middle of the racetrack and block the road, but at the same time, if you were just going to pull over, then not sure what was accomplished by staying out in the first place. But like we said, this changes the complexion of the restart because Zelensky will become the control car. He will be on the inside of the front row. DeYoung's going to be alongside him. So that buffer that the 83 got is going to be gone. That was basically as good of a start that previous time, Steve, as Bobby Zelensky could have wanted, right? Fired off, was able to get around Malik Ray, and by that point, he had like 3 car lengths over Mitchell DeYoung. But just as they were approaching the white flag, DeYoung again was flexing that short run speed. He was within a half a car length of Bobby Zelensky. So I think the gap that he gets on this start could make or break if he will have enough to hold off DeYoung, who has been so good on these restarts tonight.
Well, in the end, I think it all comes down to the acceleration. We're going to have to try to, there you go. There's a great look at all the drivers strapped into their rigs, getting ready for this second attempt at an overtime finish. And it's all about the acceleration for the 83. He has to get the power down. If he accelerates out and is able to clear the 23 into turn 1, I think that's his best opportunity, because then you can go into defense mode.
How much is this win worth to you? If the playoff drivers in victory lane, they will fight for a championship at Texas in a couple of weeks. The pace car is down and in. Bobby Zelensky right foot down early. Green flag in the air for green-white checker number 2. And Zelensky leads by 3 car lengths.
A huge jump by Bobby Zelensky gives him 3 car lengths into turn 1. The 23 will clear, though. Now he's clear in second. Can he run down the 83? Does he have enough time with a lap and a half to go?
Kerwin had gotten to his inside. Is that going to be just enough to hold Mitchell DeYoung up? He closes in now. 2.5 car lengths into set number 3 and 4. They need to get to the white flag for it to be official. Zelensky with 1 to go.
Bobby Zelensky looking to guarantee a spot in the championship race. Mitchell DeYoung trying to take it away as they climb the banking in 1 and 2. Clean exit of turn 2 for both of the leaders. One more chance for Mitchell DeYoung.
DeYoung is faster, down the back straightaway, final time to 3. He looks to the inside, side by side for the race lead, but Bobby Zelensky is too much at a turn 4. Zelensky wins at Darlington and will fight for an eNASCAR championship in 2021.
What a run for Bobby Zielinski, known as the road course ace. Wins for so many years. Mitchell DeYoung comes to the series. He uproots him. He becomes the road course ace. Bobby Zielinski wins on an oval to make the playoffs and then wins race 1 at NASCAR's toughest track. Bobby Zielinski in the championship 4. You see the unbelievable excitement on his face.
As he celebrates on the front straightaway, this winning moment is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. Coming into 2021, Bobby Zielinski had 8 career wins in this series, 7 of which were on the road courses. This year, he is now a 2-time winner on the ovals and is the first driver locked in to fight for a championship. And Steve, I have to feel like this has got to make up for Chris Shearburn. We talked about how heartbreaking that was for the Letard Esports team last week. Well, Letard Esports has the Chevrolet in the championship in 2021. As let's relive it and take a look at our Coca-Cola move of the race. It is that final green-white checkered finish. Zielinski got out to a huge gap, but Mitchell DeYoung just about closed it.
Yeah, Bobby Zielinski needed every car length because that last set of corners, the 23, was basically on his inside, but Zielinski doing a nice job. I mean, look at this right here. Just gets such a great run down the straightaway. He's doing a really good job, everything you would expect him to do. I was a little worried for that last set of corners, and I won't lie, I have a smile on my face to see the Letard Esport entry. You mentioned that Chris Shearburn eliminated from the playoffs or the opportunity to make the playoffs a week ago. The 83 was the one shot we had left at the organization, and there he is, found his way into victory lane.
And then it was that final time down the Bowie to backstretch. We knew DeYoung had the run, but what was he going to do? Was he going to go to the bumper? Kept it clean, looked to the inside, but Bobby Zielinski kept his foot in the gas, stayed in front at turn number 4. Bobby Zielinski is a 10-time winner now in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Steve, talk with your driver, Bobby Zielinski, going to the championship 4.
Bobby, my man, congratulations. Great call, great strategy, great driving. You are in the championship 4, man. Earned every bit of it.
I can't believe that happened. I don't usually get those kind of strategy calls to go my way, and oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. I mean, I'm glad it was really clean between me and Mitchell, but I expected that because we race each other clean. Mitchell certainly deserved to win this race. He did an amazing job, but hell, I've lost races like he's lost races, so it's great to get one my way. I'm in the championship 4 again. Will I get it done, the championship? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see.
But talk to the fans, though. Tell us how important it is to win this first one, to allow you to really focus on that last race. Now, I know there's a couple other races to go. You want to have great showings. I understand that. But in the end, the goal that we all discussed at the start of the year, right? Make the playoffs, make that championship 4. As you pointed out, so much can happen in the last race, but now you have the most opportunity to prepare.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I had the same thing last year because we started out with the Roval. But I did not expect to win this race. I mean, I said it on Twitter, I was awful. I was just a bad driver today. I'm pretty sure it was my fault what happened to Crowder. I haven't looked at it, but if it's my fault, I apologize. Yeah, it's a big relief, especially because the next 2 races are Bristol and Talladega. But I'm definitely going to help my Coanda working group teammates, Mitchell, Keegan, and Chris, just for Bristol and Talladega, of course, because I want to see Chris get some good points, and it'd be cool to race Mitchell and Keegan in the final 4. But I'm still going to be looking towards Texas for sure. Hopefully bring a version of this car here from Darlington, even though they are quite different tracks. But I'm just so relieved. I did not see this coming at all, but sometimes luck goes your way.
Hey, man, enjoy it. You earned it. It was a great call, but you had to get it done on the final restart. You did it, and for that reason, you're in the championship 4, man. Great run.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And shout out to everyone at Virtual Racing School and, of course, Letard Esports. It's awesome to talk to you, Steve. We got 2 wins now this season. It's fantastic. But yeah, Virtual Racing School, these Direct Force Pro wheel and pedals. I'm so lucky to be able to be a part of this group in BRS to use these. I didn't use them very good today, to be honest. I thought I sucked, but I had a good strategy. So got to thank them. And I got to thank Keegan and Mitchell. They did a lot of work this week on the setup with me, but they did most of the work, to be honest. So
Glad Mitchell still got a good result out of it.
All right, well, congratulations. And you just heard it. The race winner mentioned the second place finisher, Mr. DeYoung, started on pole today, perhaps had the fastest short run car for sure. It looked like the best car all day long, but the strategy, I agreed with it. He came, he took tires. I thought he had the race in hand. Unfortunately, some late yellows paid off for Bobby Zielinski. Mitchell, I know it has to be disappointing to not get the win, but a great run. You have to feel good about the pace that both you, Keegan, Bobby, everybody in the group had.
Oh, my mic was off. First and foremost, I have to say, big shout out to Bobby. Congratulations on the win. If it's anyone that takes the win, I'd love for it to be a teammate, and it's what kind of happened here. And like you said, I'll be honest, I'm really heartbroken right now. I felt like we really had a good handle on the race. Everything is going smooth. We had some really good passes, especially at the end with Nick, and it looked like we were going to get them right before the yellow came out. Bobby and Casey and Ryan that were saving fuel. And, I think that's just how NASCAR is sometimes, kind of the random factor. It bit us today. And it was a really split strategy on what to do, save fuel or go for just full push and pit. And, we chose the latter. And, I shouldn't be disappointed with the P2. We've been talking about how I really want to win on an oval. And we were so close, man. I'm so heartbroken, but at the same time, I'm really happy with the performance we had. And, I have to give a big shout out to Keegan as well. He didn't really get the finish he deserved, but he ran a great race, and he did so much work on the setup this week, and it really showed kind of the car that we had. So all in all, a good race, but so close.
Well, I can understand the disappointment, but like you said, so close. You're going to win one of these ovals soon, man. Congratulations on a great run. I, though, love the strategy. When you have the best car, put tires on and push. That's the I like to see, man, but congratulations on the P2.
Thank you very much.
All right, third place finisher, Casey Kerwin. Casey, I have to ask, I guess, first of all, no yellow, do you make it on fuel? But then you do get the yellow. It seemed to hand you the track position. You made the most of it for a P3.
Yeah, it was, we just went for it there. We're in a position where we didn't make the playoffs, and we have a pretty good point cushion back to 21st. So we just, we went for it. We were just going for a win. And it was really tight on fuel, but I think we would have made it. But obviously I'd already lost a spot to Nick and Mitchell. So I think we would have ended up about 7th, but we would have made it. And then the caution coming out just gifted us good track position for a restart there.
Well, it was fun to watch, a lot of give and take early, but those last couple overtimes looked super crazy.
Yeah, it was really stressful, especially when Malik stayed out. He didn't know, I knew he wasn't going to get a good launch, but if he, was still side by side into one, we all would have just been stacking so hard. It would have been really sketchy, but thankfully I kind of lucked out in that, being on the outside, and was able to just roll top, and I got all the way to 3rd from 6th. So, definitely got lucky there, and glad we were able to capitalize on it.
All right, man. Well, congratulations. Top 3 finish. Evan, I'm going to tell you, it's a long race when you go to Darlington, and it's a battle, and the crew chief in me always loves a good strategy when it comes out, and these guys played it well with the fuel mileage to get a little track position.
We had a ton of it all the way to the very last lap of this one. And just when you have survived one gauntlet, Steve, you get thrown into another. These drivers just had to deal with Darlington as a playoff opener, and now we send them to the last great Coliseum, Bristol Motor Speedway, in 2 weeks' time. That intensity is not going to ramp down at all. This opening round of these playoffs are cutthroat, and we're going to Bristol, baby, next week for the second race of the postseason.
Well, everything happens faster, right? And when that's the really thing when I look at Bristol, is not just who runs well, but who can survive. And who can survive somebody else's mess. It's a lot like super speedway racing. Someone has an accident into the corner, you collect 6, 7, 8 cars. Even if it doesn't damage your car enough to end your night, it might damage your car enough to not have a chance to win. So I'm thankful that the Letard Esport entry that was in the playoffs is now in the Championship 4, and we aren't depending on Bristol, that's going to make it a whole lot more fun in a couple weeks to call it with you.
And it's going to be trickier for everybody else, right? Just looking, Zelensky moves in. DeYoung, Mullis, and Busa will be the other 3 playoff drivers above the cut line. But Mullis is going to be by 2 points to Busa. Clampett down 3, Vicente down 4. I mean, it is razor thin. But I think the big takeaway, Steve, out of this race is that the playoff opener winner is a playoff driver. So 2 races left to go, 3 spots left. Bristol going to be very, very critical, and it gets that much more cutthroat. You said at the top of the night, I am going to want a win to feel comfortable, and with a playoff driver winning the opener, it follows that trend.
Absolutely. I expect playoff drivers to win the next 2 races, and if you don't expect that as a playoff driver, I don't think you're anywhere near aggressive enough. That's what's going to take. Even at Talladega, we could talk about the randomness and the craziness of plate racing. It doesn't matter. We've seen it in real life NASCAR walk-off wins by some of the sport's biggest stars. If these eNASCAR drivers want to go to the Championship 4, we're looking for a walk-off win. That's what it's going to take.
Got to step up when the stage is the biggest. Until next time, though, that is it for us here tonight from Darlington. So on behalf of our entire team, for everybody at NASCAR and iRacing, our broadcast crew downstairs, and of course, for your booth team tonight. For Steve Letarte and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Bobby Zelensky. He is back in the Championship 4 and will fight for a title in 2021. The road to $300,000 continues in 2 weeks' time on Tuesday, September the 14th, with the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series playoffs can be found right here on the iRacing Esports Network and streaming live at eNASCAR.com/live. Till next time, good night from Darlington.